Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 981. The Silently Supporting Old Man. Elder, this. Li Qing was stunned at this moment. He hadn't expected that Elder Qing Yangxi would actually take out his own contribution points just for Lin Fan. Qing Yangxi did not reply. Instead, he separated out 2/3 of his contribution points on a token. Exchange for the third metal void sword wool, green wood true energy sword wool, upper compassionate water sword wool, 9 heavens mysterious fire sword wool, heavenly unknown desolate sword wool, and a breaking immortal elixir. Qing Yangxi, what are you trying to do by exchanging for the sword wills of the 5 elements? Are you trying to groom someone or something? The elderly man who was in charge of exchanging contribution points twitched his eyelids. Using his sleeves, he took over the contribution points before dropping the scrolls of the 5 element sword wills into the palms of Qing Yangxi. There was also a pill bottle amidst the bunch of items. This old man intends to learn for himself. Qing Yangxi replied before turning around to leave. The contribution points that he had spent this time around had Qing Yangxi feeling a little pained over it. If it were a remnant, they could cultivate these 5 element sword wills for free. But, if it were any normal disciple, the cost of it was extremely high. The 5 element sword will was a combination set of sword will techniques that was ranked number 20 amongst the entire heaven and earth sect sword DAOs. As for this, breaking immortal elixir, it could increase the chances of someone breaking through to true immortal state by 70%. Elder, have you gone insane? Li Qing had followed around Elder Qing Yangxi for quite some time now. But, looking at how the latter was spending all his contribution points in exchange for these items right now had him taken aback completely for a moment. This old man is not going insane. What this old man is doing is wagering my pride. Qing Yangxi replied. But, even then, there's no need for you to go to this extent. If you were to spend all your contribution points right now, how are you going to tide through the immortal calamity when it arrives? You'll need these contribution points to exchange for treasures in order to tide through it. Li Qing remarked. That's still quite some time away. This lad is someone that this old man has personally brought back. I'm sure he's way more powerful than all of those remnants. And yet, he's now an inner sect disciple and at a disadvantage when starting off compared to others. That bloody fire mixed bread. I don't even know where he found this bloody fire spirit of the heaven and earth that overtook the seed of a remnant. This old man is indignant about that. Since the sect refuses to meet equal treatment, this old man shall groom him personally. Once he becomes a supreme powerful being that can overthrow all of those remnants, they will finally know that the lad that this old man brought back was the true paragon. He's not something that those wannabes can hope to compare against. Qing Yangxi replied. Go, send all of these over to that lad. Just tell him that it's a privilege of the sect. Qing Yangxi ordered. Elder, will that do? If I say that these were given by you, when senior brother Lin truly rises, he will definitely be grateful towards you. Li Qing asked. Bullshit, I can tell that that lad has an ego greater than anyone else's. If he were to know that inner sect disciples are nothing much, wouldn't he just leave the place entirely? Furthermore, what's the difference? This old man is someone of the sect as well. If I groom a disciple, it's equivalent to the sect grooming the disciple. There's no difference. Cut the crap and hurry up. Qing Yangxi replied. Li Qing sighed out somewhat in exasperation. It was truly rare to find someone such as Elder Qing Yangxi in this day and age. Or perhaps, it would be more accurate to say that there was no person like him. At this moment, Li Qing could finally understand as well why Elder Qing Yangxi had been living such a frugal life for the past few hundreds of years. Given a temperament as such, how could he get the better of the other elders? Li Qing did not hesitate as he flew towards the broken peak. Qing Yangxi swept his robes and placed his hands behind his back. He then raised his chin and beard, HMPH. How dare they not place any emphasis on the lad that I brought back? This old man shall prove with my very hands that someone I take an eye on will definitely turn into a peerless genius. With that, Qing Yangtze walked away in a furious huff. At the Saint Devil Peak, Lin Fan pointed out with his finger, filling the entire peak with a ball of life force. At the same time, each time he took in a breath, he sucked in spirit chi that was way thicker than back in the ancient saint world. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Ding, cultivated spirit chi, experience points plus 100. With just that slight bit of effort, he was able to turn the spirit chi into experience points. Even though it was not much, it was still pretty decent. Back in the ancient saint world, after his powers had risen, the spirit chi that he breathed in could no longer give him any more experience points. Pishu. At that moment, a figure bolted over from the void. Senior brother Lin, how is everything here? Li Qing's face was normal as he did not reveal anything off from his expressions. Not bad. Lin Fan nodded his head. Having a private place of his own, it would save him the hassle of being bothered by other people. This is Eld, the sect's benefits given to inner sect disciples, a set of the 5 elements sword will. There's also a breaking immortal elixir. Here's a token as well. From now on, you are officially a disciple of the Heaven and Earth sect. Li Qing nearly let the truth slip out. He then flicked out a single finger and had everything that was entrusted to him by Elder Qing Yangtze placed into Lin Fan's hands. Ding. Discovered a set of 5 elements sword will. Learn. Ding. Discovered 1. Breaking immortal elixir. Breaking immortal elixir. After consumption, it can increase the chances of one entering the true immortal state by 70%. Can be converted into 10 million experience points. Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy. Not too bad. This stuff were truly way more high-end than back in the Xuanwang or ancient saint world. Many thanks, junior brother. Lin Fan cupped his hands together. Have an early rest then, senior brother. Your junior brother will take his leave first. If there's anything you aren't familiar with, you can use your powers to activate the token. There are some basic guides to introduce you towards the sect within. Li Qing explained. Alright, Lin Fan nodded his head. Not too bad. This was quite the friendly sect, isn't it? After Li Qing left the place, Lin Fan returned to his house. He then popped the breaking immortal elixir into his mouth and converted it into 10 million experience points immediately. Lin Fan was someone who possessed the system. As long as there were enough experience points, there was no barrier towards raising his cultivation state. Learn. This set of 5 elements sword will would do just nice to complement his own sword will. The 5 elements revolved as they let out an endless aura. Boom. At this moment, Lin Fan sat up cross-legged while a series of sword wills that were filled with 5 different colors rotated around him. These torrential sword wills surged up into the sky. Just as they were about to penetrate through the barriers of the Saint Devil Peak, they converged into a singular sword will that dissipated out with a slight thud before returning back into Lin Fan's body. This fusion function is truly extremely tyrannical. To be able to fuse all of the 5 element sword wills. This is almost 100 years of hard work if it were anyone else who was trying to do this. Lin Fan sighed out in his heart. To be able to fuse the 5 element sword wills into a single sword will was a gift of the sword. This was something that could only be achieved by someone who was born with an unparalleled innate gift for the sword. And even then, there was no guarantee that they would succeed this easily. But, in the hands of Lin Fan, a single fusion function could turn every impossibility into a possibility. Lin Fan raised his finger as an emptiness sword will appeared, instantly slicing the void apart. Within the void, opening parenthesis closing parenthesis, when Qing Yangtze caught sight of the 5 elements sword will that burst forth from the Saint Devil Peak, his face revealed a look of astonishment. But then, it was replaced by a wild laughter. Ha ha, this old man has truly made the right judgment. This lad is an unparalleled supreme paragon of the world. What remnants, what geniuses, none of them can compare to him at all. This old man must definitely work hard to have that lad's available resources catch up with the others. At this moment, Qing Yangtze was determined on something he had never ever once thought of, and that was to work tirelessly to earn contribution points and cultivate out pure young immortal chi so that he could exchange sufficient resources for Lin Fan. As a true immortal state powerful being, Qing Yangtze could communicate with the heaven and earth to gather pure young immortal chi. Those could be used to exchange for contribution points, which could then be used to exchange for items. As for Lin Fan, what he did not know was that there was an old man who was silently supporting him tirelessly from the backstage in order to prove that his judgment was right. Chapter 982 Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. Chapter 982, Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. A few days later, The Saint Devil Peak was peaceful and harmonious, without anyone visiting at all. Lin Fan's joining of the Heaven and Earth sect, and becoming one of their inner sect disciples did not cause that much of a stir or attract anyone's attention. In the past few days, Lin Fan had started to grasp the general situation of the endless mainland as well. 9 sects, 6 residences, 3 caves, and 72 gangs. This was the distribution of strength within the entire endless mainland. These were the highest levels amongst everything. And, those minor sects and gangs out there were not that weak either. Most of the minor sects and gangs were formed by the accomplished disciples of some major sects or something before spreading out their influence. Some of them were at a level not to be scoffed at. On this day, Lin Fan stood on the Saint Devil Peak as he looked down at the entire Heaven and Earth sect. There was a total of 10,008 such broken peaks that resonated with the Heaven and Earth. And, the reason why these broken peaks could remain afloat in the void was precisely because of this mutual resonance with the Heaven and Earth that created a corresponding energy, allowing them to float there forever. If something as such had to be sustained with normal powers, that would be way too horrifying an expenditure. Furthermore, there would not be anyone who would be lame enough to do nothing but float these broken peaks in the void the entire time. Pishu. At this moment, a figure in red passed through the void above the Saint Devil Peak, then came to a stop as a voice traveled over. Oh, I didn't know that someone has taken residence in this broken peak already. Lin Fan lifted his head and looked at the woman dressed in red above. Her features were clean and sweet. Even though she could not be described as a supreme beauty, she was still pretty decent. What is your name? Lin Fan looked at the woman in red calmly. Lin Fan. And yours? Su Hongchen. My broken peak is right beside yours. From now on, we can be considered as neighbors as well. How about coming over to my peak to take a look? Su Hongchen said. Lin Fan thought about it for a moment. Since he had just entered the sect, it wouldn't be too bad of an idea to get to know some people as well. Who knew what might happen in the future? Alright, accepting your offer is the best respect I can give. Lin Fan nodded his head. Pishu. Indeed, the broken peak of Su Hongchen was extremely close to his. And outside her broken peak were 9 different treasures that were revolving around the peak to form a unique formation, possessing the capabilities of both attack and defense in the same body. This was pretty decent indeed. This is the 9 chains formation. All of these 9 treasures are middle grade utmost treasures that are connected to form a single body. However, what it lacks now is a single core to rely on. Otherwise, even if it were a true immortal state being, they would not be able to break through the defenses of this peak of mine. Su Hongchen said with pride. Lin Fan nodded his head. Indeed, the toys in this endless mainland were far more high-end than those back in the ancient saint world. Even treasures could be used to join together and form a unique formation. In the ancient saint world, there were not many uses of treasures. Even if it were formations, that was extremely rare, and there would rarely be anyone who would use those to defend against enemies. This is my red dust peak. After years of hard work, there's finally some structure to it. Su Hongchen said. Passing through the formation, they landed on the peak. Your spirit chi here is even thicker than the world outside by 2 or 3 times. Lin Fan commented. That's for sure. Every broken peak has its unique formation that's working at extracting the spirit chi of the heaven and earth within. After all, there are too many people cultivating around here. Some people's skills are overly tyrannical, and can easily absorb all the spirit chi in a radius of 100 miles dry. This is something that could affect us drastically. Therefore, we just collect spirit chi and store them inside here usually. Su Hongchen replied. Oh, so that's the case. Lin Fan nodded his head. I've looked at that mountain peak of yours. It looks to be in its initial stage. Have you only joined the sect recently? Su Hongchen asked. Yes. Lin Fan nodded his head. If there's anything you do not get, feel free to come check it out with me. Su Hongchen offered. Su Hongchen watched Lin Fan observe the people that were roaming around the mountain peak. There were many disciples living here. When they bumped into Su Hongchen, they would greet her politely as well. These are all servant disciples, and some of the outer sect disciples. I had them over to clean up the peak. Su Hongchen seemed like a really friendly person who explained many things for Lin Fan. At the same time, Lin Fan had realized that the territory of Su Hongchen had developed out pretty decently. There were many curious herbs that were being grown in her garden. In the crafting room, there were some disciples that were working hard at crafting out materials. They were all extremely busy. If he hadn't thought about the size of this place itself, it could even suffice as a minor sect of its own. Lin Fan nodded his head. This time around, he had truly gained quite a bit of knowledge. At this moment, there were a few people standing outside the red dust peak. I've got friends coming. When Su Hongchen sensed the situation outside her formation, she swept her robes and a passageway tore open, allowing a few figures to land down. Hongchen, this is. An extremely bulky man looked at Lin Fan with a trace of wariness in his eyes. This is Lin Fan, who has just joined the sect. His broken peak is right beside mine. This person here is Hu Qing, the owner of Tiger Saint Peak. Su Hongchen then introduced two other people to Lin Fan. One of them had a really strong weapon intent. This was a young master of a family that crafted weapons, Bing Lingxing. There was another one that was dressed like a scholar. Within his brows was a Confucian aura, and his name was Ru Wanshu. Lin Fan cupped his fist and greeted them. The cultivation state of these people was pretty decent. They were both at the immemorial ancient state. Hongchen, this time around, we're intending to form a party for an expedition to the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. Do you want to join us? Hu Qing asked. Sure, even though that Earth Abyssal Demon Cave is incredibly dangerous, the rewards to be obtained are tremendous. If we were to party up, we would most likely be fine as long as we don't go into the deeper levels. Su Hongchen replied. Lin Fan had some knowledge about this Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. This was an underground world that had many entrances throughout the entire endless mainland. At that place were plenty of ferocious beasts. However, most of them would reside in the deeper levels. As long as one did not seek to provoke them intentionally, there would usually be no issues with it. Brother Lin, do you want to come along? Su Hongchen asked. Lin Fan was taken aback slightly. To think that this Su Hongchen would take the initiative to invite him. That was something that had him slightly startled. But, when he thought about it again, it would naturally be for the best if he could tag along. For his path of cultivation, the fastest way about was to kill powerful beings. If he could head to this Earth Abyssal Demon Cave, that would be the best he could hope for. All right, Lin Fan nodded his head in agreement. Hold on, Hongchen, how is the strength of this fella here? I wouldn't want him to be a burden and tug at our hind legs. This time around, we're not the only ones entering the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. Hu Qing said. Who else is heading over? Su Hongchen asked in surprise. As far as I know, Jian Fengchen has already brought people with him into the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. And then there's also young Mr. Gong Hai, Hu Qing said before casting a glance over at Lin Fan. It's fine if you want to join us. But first, I'll have to test out your strength. All of a sudden, Hu Qing spread out his fingers and grabbed out with a tiger claw, lunging at Lin Fan's shoulders. The void started cracking out while emitting explosions. That tiger claw seemed to be capable of tearing open the heaven and earth, causing an astral wind to howl out furiously. Everyone nearby stumbled back immediately from the commotion. At such proximity, even they could feel the astral wind slapping by their faces and giving them a stinging pain from within. But, Lin Fan just lifted his palm casually. Without any fancy moves, he held that claw in his hands firmly. Hu Qing was stunned. All of a sudden, he felt as though all the powers within his entire body had been frozen by something. He even felt a feeling of being cut off from it. Thanks for letting me win. Lin Fan smiled out indifferently, unbothered by everything in the least bit. Su Hongchen was pretty taken aback. She hadn't expected that the strength of this man would be this strong. This was something totally out of her expectations. Chapter 983 They have some intellect. Chapter 983, They have some intellect. Hu Qing did not have any significant changes in his expressions. He had realized that he was no match for the other party. While it was hard for him to maintain his expression stable, he was thankful that the people here were all on his side at the very least. There was no fear of being seen in such a state by them. To think that junior brother Lin's strength would be this strong. For the trip to the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave this time around, we will probably be in your care. Hu Qing cupped his fists while saying. Even though he had lost, this had Hu Qing feeling that this was quite an opportunity for them to enter the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave indeed. The stronger the strength of their party members, the safer they would be. Bing Lingxing and Ru Wanshu looked straight at Lin Fan as well. This was an acknowledgement towards the strong. Let's gather tomorrow then. We'll take our leave first. Hu Qing said. When Hu Qing and the others left, Lin Fan was also ready to head back to prepare for a little. Thus, he cupped fists to Su Hongchen, bidding her farewell before leaving. The next day, the masses gathered and headed forth together. After traveling through the void for a couple of days, they finally arrived at their destination. They floated gently in the void. Lin Fan looked down at this indefinitely huge Earth Abyssal Demon Cave and could not help but gasp out. This cave was just like a black hole, so deep that one could neither make out its depths nor what was going on within. There was an unusually lonely sense of death pervading in and around it, which was extremely scary. This here is the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. The creatures that reside within are called Earth Demons, and they love to drink up our essence blood. Therefore, after entering, I hope that everyone can work together and try not to do anything reckless on your own. Hu Qing said. If we meet other sects, we must definitely be on our guard as well. After all, the most dangerous things here are not those Earth Demons, but the disciples of the other sects. Lin Fan listened intently and could more or less figure out what was going on. Everyone then turned into streaks of light that dove right into the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. The moment they entered the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave, it got so dark that they could not even make out their 5 fingers for a moment. Even if they had the strength of immemorial ancient state, their vision was still blocked out, and they could only sense everything through their consciousness. You guys must make sure not to breathe in the putrid demonic chi here. This place is filled with all sorts of intents, and there have been many people who have fallen here. As such, their grudges are mixed in with the putrid demonic chi as well. Lin Fan breathed in slightly. When the putrid demonic chi made its way into Lin Fan's body, it turned into a series of demons that roared out in fury. However, they were suppressed by the system instantaneously before being converted into experience points in its purest form. This putrid demonic chi was just like spirit chi. It was just that it wasn't suitable for them to take in. It wasn't long before everyone felt their feet touching ground. The ground here was pitch black, darker than anything could be. At the same time, it was unusually tough. Within the void was a blood-red moon that shone light down onto this Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. The earthen fires spurted out while raging blazes caused the temperature in this place to rise considerably. Everyone, watch out, let us continue heading in deeper. For the moment, there was nothing weird in their surroundings. Hu Qing seemed as though he was pretty familiar with this place as he led Lin Fan and the others to strike it out within. After a long time, they came to a stop. Watch out, there's a group of Earth Demons up ahead, Hu Qing said. Lin Fan focused his gaze over. The Earth Demons up ahead did not look any different from humans. However, their entire body was jet black, and the scales on their body were distinguished. Under the shimmer of the blood-red moonlight, they let out a series of eerie glows. An Earth Demon had torn apart a disciple from some sect and was drinking his blood. That's a disciple of Yu sect, Su Hongchen said. I remember heading to that sect before. They're considered to be a smaller scale sect. But, to think that a disciple of theirs would fall in the hands of these Earth Demons. That's quite a pity. Sweeping his glance over, Lin Fan saw that the cultivation states of these Earth Demons were mostly at divine celestial level. There would be the occasional supreme state ones as well. Roar! All of a sudden, a roar filled the entire place. Within the group of Earth Demons was a single one that suddenly roared out in rage. That pitch-black body began to expand rapidly as the blood chi around him was being gathered around him at a swift rate. That over there is a leader of the Earth Demons. Based on the situation right now, it seems like he's about to level up. Ru Wanshu said. Should we strike out right now? Once this Earth Demon levels up, he would be at immemorial ancient state. His core should be good stuff by then. Bing Lingxing asked. Alright, let us go then. Hu Qing surveyed the situation around and realized that there was no large group of Earth Demons gathered. Go, Pishu. The group bolted out and attacked the Earth Demons. Damned living beings. How dare they strike out just as your leader is breaking through? Go and devour them. The leader howled out as the surrounding Earth Demons pounced towards Lin Fan and the others in a frenzy. Thud. Lin Fan was totally unbothered by these ants. Even after killing them, he could not reap in any significant experience points. As he raised his finger, it was as though he was slicing out at a chicken as he killed all of those Earth Demons instantly. Even though some of those Earth Demons were at supreme state as well, compared to Lin Fan, they were still extremely insignificant. Haha, we've really earned big now. Who would have thought that the underlings of this Earth Demon are nothing more than small fries? Hu Qing roared out in laughter. He then hollered out and like a tiger as he leapt out towards the Earth Demon that was breaking through. And just at this moment, Lin Fan's brows furrowed up. Watch out, Lin Fan warned. But right then, the Earth Demon that was breaking through started roaring out in laughter in return. All of a sudden, his surroundings started exploding as a pair of pitch-black demonic hands extended out from the ground, intending to tear apart Hu Qing's chest. Out of nowhere, there was a bunch of Earth Demons that had suddenly appeared all around Hu Qing. To make matters worse, the cultivation state of these Earth Demons was at immemorial ancient state middle level. It all happened too fast for him to react and defend against. Hu Qing's face was drained of color. However, it was all too late. Haha, these living beings are truly dumb indeed. All your leader has to do is deploy some small tricks, and God knows how many living beings are scammed by it thoroughly. Do you guys really think that we earth demons are good to kill? While you guys need our cores, we earth demons also need your essence blood. Living being, go and die for your leader. The leader of the earth demons laughed out wildly and suddenly came to a stop during his breakthrough. With those sharp demonic arms of his, he grabbed out at Hu Qing. Hu Qing, Su Hongqian and the others were completely shocked right now as they exclaimed out. On their side, Lin Fan's brows furrowed as his feet moved ever so slightly. With that, he vanished from where he was immediately. Slay. At this moment, Lin Fan had used so near, yet so far. In the blink of an eye, he appeared before Hu Qing. When his body jerked momentarily, an extremely sharp sword will took on the shape of a semicircle before slicing out at all of these earth demons. Thud. In a flash, the bodies of these earth demons all ruptured out as their jet black blood gushed out into the sky. All this happened in a split thousandth of a second. It was only after Lin Fan had annihilated the entire group of earth demons that the group could clearly make out the situation. Are you all right? Lin Fan stood there and asked calmly. Hu Qing looked at Lin Fan with a face of absolute bewilderment, as though he could not believe what had just happened. He didn't even have the chance to make out clearly what had just happened moments prior. By the time he reacted to it, he realized that this person had already slain all of those earth demons. Thank you. Hu Qing's voice was still trembling slightly. All he could feel was how frightening the strength of Lin Fan was. Even Su Hongqian and the others were frozen for a moment before snapping to their senses. Junior brother Lin, your strength. Lin Fan smiled out indifferently. Everyone, do take care to watch out. The intellect of these earth demons is not low. They do know how to lure us out. After killing that leader of those earth demons, the system rang out with notifications of all the experience points gained. That was quite a good feeling. Chapter 984. Do you think you're number one? Chapter 984. Do you think you're number one? Vel B in .c Ohm. Hu Qing was still suffering from some lingering trepidations. He felt that he had truly been way too careless. If not for the fact that junior brother Lin had stepped in earlier on, he would have lost that little life of his in the hands of these earth demons for sure. My thanks, junior brother Lin. Ever since he had tested out Lin Fan's strength, Hu Qing had never once belittled the former. And now that there was this life-saving grace of his, Hu Qing was naturally immensely grateful. It's nothing. Since we're a party, we've got to help out one another. Lin Fan said. This is the core of that leader of those earth demons. By all reasoning, this should belong to junior brother Lin. Su Hongqian dug out the core of that earth demon leader. Back in the sect, this core can be used to exchange for quite a significant amount of contribution points. Keep it and we'll split it fairly later on. Lin Fan replied. Lin Fan had no use for stuff like this. For Lin Fan, the most practical thing to take note of was to kill as many earth demons as he could right now. And not only that, it had to be those earth demons with the strongest strength. Only those types of earth demons could provide him with a continuous stream of experience points. Lin Fan's actions naturally curried favor with everyone around. A party mate as such was someone that everyone would love to be with. Even though these earth demons are not too strong, their cores should be worth some contribution points as well. We can't let them go to waste now. Su Hongqian dug up the cores of those other fallen earth demons. For the next few days, Lin Fan and the others had been slaying earth demons within this earth abyssal demon cave. As a result, the cores that they had obtained were numerous. However, to Lin Fan's disappointment, even the highest cultivation state of the earth demons they had encountered was only immemorial ancient state upper level. Lin Fan truly wanted to kill down to the deeper levels. However, when he considered that Su Hongqian and the others were with him, he gave up on that thought. After heading back this time around, Lin Fan had the intentions of heading over alone the next time. The deeper they got, the more the surroundings around them started changing. There were more corpses lying all over the place. Some of the corpses were from long ago while others could not have been there for that long. At best, they ended up here only recently. Such a thick demonic chi. At this moment, Su Hongqian's brows furrowed as she could sense that the demonic chi here was truly detestable. Hu Qing and the others were equally surprised. They too had felt this demonic chi here. And not only that, the demonic chi was extremely vile compared to anything else. There was even a trace of essence blood that could be sensed in it. Someone is cultivating here, Ru Wanshu remarked. Lin Fan raised his finger. This demonic chi should be coming over from that place over there. Everyone exchanged glances. Shall we head over to check it out? Lin Fan was lacking powerful beings to kill right now, therefore, he immediately nodded his head. We can try. These few people then hid their auras and slowly inched closer before hiding behind some boulders. They are not cultivating some demonic skills, just cultivating their treasures. Su Hongchen said. When Lin Fan caught sight of the situation ahead, his interest was piqued slightly. Above a pool of blood was a young man who looked extremely devilish. Beside him was a blood-red saber floating around him. There were a few blood-red threads that extended out of the red saber. These blood threads seeped into the pool of blood and sucked out the essence blood within. As for the earth demons around, they were lying with their stomachs propped up. When they opened their mouths, an endless amount of essence blood sprayed out. That's a disciple of the blood demon sect. Cultivating their weapons with essence blood, that is a technique that only the blood demon sect employs. Su Hongchen commented. The blood demon sect was a demonic sect, and was one of the 9 great righteous sects as well. Who's there? All of a sudden, that disciple of the blood demon sect jerked his eyes wide open and spat out a mouthful of blood chi that turned into a blood-red streak of light, crushing the boulder they were hiding behind. HMPH. Here I was wondering who it was. Seems like it's the disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect. That young man stood up as his eyes shone with a demonic gaze. There was a bone-chilling feeling about him. Number 67 on the True Immortal Substitute roll, Shui Tianzi. At this moment, Hu Qing recognized who this person before him was. That long robe he was wearing which was red as blood, and that demonic gaze of his. This was a powerful being on the True Immortal Substitute roll. Go, hurry and go. We're not his match, Hu Qing exclaimed out and dragged everyone along with him. For someone to be able to get on the True Immortal Substitute roll, they must definitely be a powerful being. This wasn't an existence they could deal with. Haha, since you're here, why not stay here? What are you guys trying to leave for? Shui Tianzi laughed out as the sky vibrated. A series of blood-red banners sealed up the entire sky and blocked off everyone's escape path. Back in the past, Lin Fan did not know what the True Immortal Substitute role was. But, he now knew clearly. This role was the ranking of all the immemorial ancient state beings that had yet to enter the True Immortal state. Those who were able to have their names on the substitute roll were basically immemorial ancient state full cultivation state beings. But, even then, only paragons would be able to make it into the top 100 of the list with just an immemorial ancient state upper level. Since this Shui Tianzi was able to rank 67, his strength must be stronger than most others for sure. Even though the cultivation state of Hu Qing and the others was pretty decent, compared to those on the True Immortal Substitute roll, they were still too far off, way too far off. Thus, it was no wonder that they would have to make a run for it upon meeting someone from the True Immortal Substitute roll. This scarlet blood demon saber of mine is just short of that bit of essence blood to be upgraded to a supreme grade utmost treasure. Since you guys are here, then you shall contribute your essence bloods for your Tianzi here. Shui Tianzi was someone of the demonic sect after all, and they leaned heavily towards killing. Since Lin Fan and the others had ventured here, he would naturally not let them off. Not good. Shui Tianzi's killing intent towards us has been activated. Bing Lingxing's face was pale with fright. Shui Tianzi, we are intersect disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect. If you dare to kill us, the Heaven and Earth sect will definitely not let you off. Hu Qing warned harshly. Hee, let me off. Well, have your Grand Master make a trip over to the Blood Demon sect then. Shui Tianzi roared out in laughter as he gripped that scarlet blood demon saber of his. With that, a torrential sea of blood surged up from behind his body. 100 weapons breaking formation. At this moment, Bing Lingxing roared out as a bedazzling gleam of light shone out from his body. Countless weapons flew out of it and formed up a weapon spirit. The figure of this weapon spirit was immensely huge. When he slashed out, the entire world shook along with it. Insignificant tricks, Shui Tianzi scoffed coldly as he sliced out with the saber in his hands. A blood shade tore through the firmaments. This scarlet blood demon saber brought out an endless streak of blood-red light. It was so sharp that even the void shattered in its presence. Creak, the weapon spirit crumbled without even having a chance to fight back at all. Despite that, the speed of the scarlet blood demon saber did not diminish in the least bit. In fact, it got even faster. Not good. The faces of the group were stunned. Ru Wanshu even spat out a mouthful of his essence blood, hoping that the blood could draw in the righteous powers of the heaven and earth. But, in the face of this weapon that was about to turn into a supreme grade utmost treasure, all efforts were futile. Everyone, I'm afraid that we'll all have to fall here. Hu Qing was filled with immense regrets right now. If only they hadn't come forth due to curiosity, nothing like this would have happened then. Who determined that? At this moment, Lin Fan stood forth and raised his hand. He blocked the scarlet blood demon saber with his bare palms and gave it a simple grip. The saber then shattered and disintegrated into the air. Number 67 on the true immortal substitute roll. Do you really think that you're number 1? And, even if you're number 1, your outcome will still be the same. Lin Fan said. The group looked at Lin Fan in astonishment. How could that scarlet blood demon saber break so easily? This was way too unreal. Lamb_why is the blood demon sect described as a righteous sect as well? I have no idea. I'll update and change this if anything happens in the future. But mostly I blame our author for not giving me an extremely detailed explanation as usual. He just tossed a random 9 sects, 6 blah blah 3 blah 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 blah. Rolls eyes haha, cheers. Chapter 985 Cheap Excuses to Steal. Chapter 985 Cheap Excuses to Steal. Who are you? Shui Tianzi was alarmed as his face changed. To think that this unknown person would be able to break his saber gleam. He knew of everyone on the true immortal substitute roll. But, this person before his eyes. He truly had no idea who this was. If you're able to get out of my hands alive, you will be worthy of getting an answer to that question then. Lin Fan laughed out coldly. November LBJNN. Immemorial ancient full cultivation state. This was a pretty decent cultivation state. After killing this guy, Lin Fan would be able to obtain a decent amount of experience points. This was the type of world he truly wanted. When Shui Tianzi heard those words, his heart was filled with rage instantly. A torrential blood chi rumbled out, within which, vengeful spirits howled and cried out. Even if one were to be tainted with a single drop of that blood, their skin would definitely rot. Even if it were an immemorial ancient full cultivation state being, they might not be able to defend against this easily. Do you really think that you're able to slay your Tianzi just after breaking through a single saber gleam of mine? That has got to be the biggest dream you'll ever have. Shui Tianzi bellowed out as a blood gleam appeared once more. A saber that was even more berserk than before slashed over. Shui Tianzi was a genius of the blood demon sect. All this while, he had been roaming outside and killing countless of living beings so as to steal away their essence blood and feed his scarlet blood demon saber. This demon saber was a weapon that the blood demon sect had crafted for Shui Tianzi. This was something that was created through the accumulation of countless of legendary items. At the moment of its formation, even a calamity had descended from the heavens. Therefore, it was an utmost treasure at birth, one that was stronger than most other utmost treasures out there. After many years of hard work, Shui Tianzi was finally on the cusp of raising this to a supreme grade utmost treasure. A single saber gleam from it could shine down on the entire world. That rumbling blood chi was something that would have the hearts of any opponent palpitating, making them unable to resist it at all. But, in the eyes of Lin Fan, this Shui Tianzi was nothing more than a weak chicken. Lin Fan stepped forth and raised a single palm. Bam! With that, the blood-red saber gleam dissipated. Shui Tianzi was taken aback as his body shuddered. He churned his demonic powers as a torrential demonic chi burst forth from him. Lin Fan took another step forth, and yet another palm was raised to suppress it. Lin Fan placed his palm onto Shui Tianzi's forehead directly. Under the frightful expression of Shui Tianzi, he used some strength. Bam! Ding! Congratulations on killing Shui Tianzi. Ding! Experience points plus 30 million. Lin Fan grabbed the scarlet blood demon saber in his hands. The weapon spirit within was struggling and fighting back furiously as a stream of blood chi penetrated his body. To think that even a measly weapon spirit would dare to resist. Courting death, Lin Fan moved slightly and took down the weapon spirit of the scarlet blood demon saber immediately. Holy FCK, Hu Qing and the others were just watching everything with their jaws wide open right now. To think that the rank 67 of the true immortal substitute role, Shui Tianzi, would be defeated in just 2 moves. That was way too unreal, wasn't it? Junior brother Lin, this strength of yours, how could this be possible? But, you're not even known at all on the true immortal substitute role. Su Hongchen gasped out. I've repressed my entire body's aura. Therefore, the true immortal substitute role would naturally not be able to detect me. Lin Fan replied. With the cover of his system, it was only natural that Lin Fan's name would not appear on the true immortal substitute role. As for Su Hongchen and the others, they were just completely horrified by this strength that junior brother Lin possessed. Heck, even those remnants of the sect might not be able to be his match. Only, the thing that bothered them was, why was junior brother Lin just an inner sect disciple? Even though they were bothered by the thought, they did not dare to raise the question. Junior brother Lin, that scarlet blood demon saber. Could I have a look at it? Bing Lingxing asked. Sure, Lin Fan nodded his head. Junior brother Bing, you're really in luck and can be considered as having met with a lucky star. Junior brother Bing makes use of weapons as his core. Now that he's able to make contact with a weapon that's poised to be a supreme grade utmost treasure, he will be able to comprehend the laws within it. With that, his own cultivation state would be able to grow once more. Hu Qing explained. Bing Lingxing felt the scarlet blood demon saber and caressed the patterns on its surface carefully. These saber patterns possess the utmost wisdom of the heaven and earth. And just at this moment, a bright beam of light penetrated through this blood-red light screen shrouding them. It descended from the sky as an extraordinary aura wrapped the group within it. Under this brilliant beam of light, several figures appeared in the void. When Lin Fan raised his head over, he realized that these few figures were truly exceptional. This was especially the case for one of the men standing up ahead. His aura was even more extraordinary. Who are they? Lin Fan asked. That is a remnant, senior brother Ling Wuzun. Beside him is Jian Fengchen. Su Hongchen explained a little nervously. Senior brother Ling Wuzun, the demonic nature of that saber is extremely strong. Jian Fengchen glared straight at the scarlet blood demon saber in Bing Lingxing's hands as his eyes shone with a look of greed. That was a quasi-supreme grade utmost treasure. It was a true piece of treasure. If there were a little more effort put in that quasi-supreme grade utmost treasure, it could definitely break through to become an immortal weapon. By that time, it would have wondrous effects and possess an unrivaled might. Even now, it was something that was extremely eye-catching. Greetings, senior brother Ling Wuzun. Hu Qing looked at the people up in the void and bowed down. As for Lin Fan, his heart was skipping with joy when he looked at Ling Wuzun. The strength of this man was pretty strong. He was quite ahead of Shui Tianzi. Checking the true immortal substitute role, this man was ranked at number 48. How did you guys get your hands on that scarlet blood demon saber? Ling Wuzun asked. Hu Qing and the others exchanged glances with one another, reporting to senior brother, this is something that was obtained after junior brother Lin killed Shui Tianzi. The moment Hu Qing and the others were finished with their words, Jian Fengchen's voice traveled over. Brazen, how dare you guys spout such lies in front of senior brother? That Shui Tianzi is ranked number 67 on the true immortal substitute roll. He is not someone that you inner sect disciples are able to kill. Jian Fengchen barked out. The expression of Ling Wuzun changed slightly, evidently displeased as well. It was as though he was offended by the fact that these inner sect disciples would dare to lie to him. At this moment, Lin Fan stood forth and took the scarlet blood demon saber in his hands from Bing Lingxing. What do you guys want? Even if this demon saber was obtained by me, what has it got to do with you guys? Lin Fan hated people who dared to act tough and cocky in front of his face. What the FCK was a remnant. If he dared to utter any more crap, Lin Fan would beat him into a cripple. Insolent, Jian Fengchen was enraged right now. But, just as he was about to strike down, he was held back by Ling Wuzun, who then pointed at Lin Fan and asked with a frosty look on his face, and who might you be? Lin Fan. Lin Fan smiled out before glaring straight at the void and replying. Fine, that scarlet blood demon saber is a treasure of Shui Tianzi. The fact that you guys are able to obtain that scarlet blood demon saber is evident that this must be a trap laid down by Shui Tianzi. For the sake of the sect's safety, you guys have to hand it over. For the credit of handing it over to your seniors, you guys shall receive 100,000 contribution points. Ling Wuzun declared. Laid a trap, that Shui Tianzi was slain by me. What trap could he have laid? Lin Fan said before turning around immediately. He did not want to waste time arguing with this remnant or whatnot. Come, let us continue exploring deeper in. HMPH. Ling Wuzun's face turned cold as he pointed out with his finger, bent on taking down Lin Fin instantly. Offending your seniors and absolutely unrepentant. There is an absolute need to be punished. Junior brother Lin, watch out. Su Hongchen's face was alarmed. She hadn't expected that Ling Wuzun would actually strike out. She knew that this scarlet blood demon saber was a quasi-supreme grade utmost treasure. Even if it were a remnant, they might not be able to resist its allure. And right now, it was evident that Ling Wuzun was just making use of cheap excuses to get at it. Courting death. Lin Fan's brows furrowed as his heart tightened up. Seemed like if he did not show some strength, these guys would really think that he was a pushover. Chapter 986 Violent Whacking. Chapter 986, Violent Whacking. When Ling Wuzun struck out, an extremely profound power converged onto a single finger of his that struck out at Lin Fan's back. This was evidently to get that scarlet blood demon saber in the latter's hands. If this were anyone else, they would most likely be dead right here. But, since this was Lin Fan, he was undoubtedly just courting death. Lin Fan turned around and sliced out with the scarlet blood demon saber. A torrential blood chi gushed out from it, intertwining into a straight line that attacked out at Ling Wuzun. Junior brother, don't be rash now. When Su Hongchen caught sight of this scene, she yelped out in shock. She hadn't expected that things would come to this. This Ling Wuzun here was a remnant. Not only that, his cultivation was extremely profound. Even that Shui Tianzi wouldn't be a match for him. HMPH. To think that a single inner sect disciple would dare to strike out at me. I wonder who gave you those guts. Ling Wuzun was enraged right now. As he slapped out with a single palm strike, it seemed as though the surrounding void was crushed down by some immense pressure, breaking apart bit by bit. The surrounding disciples exclaimed out. Senior brother Ling's going at it for real right now. Seems like that fella is about to get crippled. I'm sure senior brother isn't going to take his life. However, he will definitely make sure that he teaches that guy how to be a proper disciple. The demonic nature of that scarlet blood demon saber is immense. As an inner sect disciple, what capabilities does he even have to be able to withstand its demonic nature? If that thing is left in his hands, the Heaven and Earth sect will definitely be filled with a bloodthirsty maniac for sure. GN Function said. The strength of Ling Wuzun was something that Lin Fan had total disregard for. This cultivation state of his wasn't even as strong as those people that Lin Fan had met back in the secret ground 11 years ago. Clang. Even though this scarlet blood demon saber was a treasure of Shui Tianzi and had a direct connection with him, ever since Lin Fan killed him, it had already been subdued in the latter's hands. This Ling Wuzun had truly overestimated his worth. He thought that Lin Fan's strength would amount to nothing much. But, when that saber gleam actually clashed with his palm, his face changed entirely. How could this be? Everything in its path withered and died, leaving destruction in its wake. The saber gleamed so sharp that it seemed as if nothing could stand in its way. Even that palm of Ling Wuzun was sliced apart by Lin Fan. Ling Wuzun's pupils dilated as the blood-red gleam approached him. At the same time, that extremely sharp saber chi slashed out at him as well. Before the saber had even reached him, the saber chi had already arrived. When this extremely sharp saber chi sliced out on Ling Wuzun's face, it stung as though his skin was torn apart. Lin Fan's lips curled into a cold grin. An existence as such was something he could take down with the back of his hands. When Hu Qing caught sight of this, he was absolutely alarmed. It was as though he could not even begin to imagine the consequences of his junior brother Lin if he killed this Ling Wuzun. Junior brother Lin, stop it! Hu Qing yelled. Xing. By the time Ling Wuzun reacted to it, the saber gleam had already arrived at his throat. That blood-red saber gleam was extremely cold and bone-chilling. Through it, Ling Wuzun could feel the cold-blooded intent behind it. Gulp. Ling Wuzun's throat bobbed up and down as a single bead of sweat flowed down his forehead ever so slowly. He was starting to feel fear in his heart right now. When GN Function caught sight of this, his face was drained of color as well. He hadn't expected that senior brother Ling would not be a match for this fella. And not only that, the other party had even stuck a saber gleam right at this throat. What are you trying to do? This is remnant senior brother Ling. As an inner sect disciple, what are you trying to do? GN Function barked out with all the courage he could muster. Lin Fan's brows furrowed as he shot a single glance over at GN Function. Startled, GN Function stumbled back a few steps in fear. In his eyes, this man before him was way too horrifying. All the other surrounding disciples were completely filled with fright right now as well, totally unable to believe in the scene before them. Senior brother Ling was a remnant. How in the world could he be defeated this easily? At this moment, Ling Wuzun wanted to speak up. However, he was cut short by Lin Fan. Don't speak now, Lin Fan said. Hu Qing rushed up immediately and came beside Lin Fan. Junior brother Lin, you mustn't kill him. Otherwise, things will be real bad. Hu Qing told him. Why now? Could something big happen out of me killing him? Lin Fan chuckled out. Junior brother Lin, the sect rules decree that as long as it is a fellow disciple, you must never harm his or her life. If you have some life and death hatred, you can settle it through a duel as long as things don't get lethal. Hu Qing replied. Oh, I see, so, that's the way it is. Lin Fan nodded his head. Now, this was interesting. What are you thinking of doing? Ling Wuzhen's face was drained of color as his expression tightened up. If there were no one surrounding them right now, Lin Fan would have just killed this fella decisively. But right now, the situation was a little troublesome. Number 48 on the true immortal substitute roll, yet that's all you amount to. Lin Fan laughed out coldly. He then slapped out furiously towards Ling Wuzhen with a single palm. Bam! You'd dare! Ling Wuzhen hadn't expected that the other party would dare to strike at him. What would I not dare? Since a fella like you dares to snatch the scarlet blood demon saber, you were just courting death to begin with. Raising his leg swiftly, Lin Fan swung it out at Ling Wuzhen's face instantly. With that, a series of tragic cries rang out. When the surrounding disciples caught sight of this scene, their faces turned pale with fright. Was this guy seeking death? This person before them was a remnant. If he dared to treat the other party as such, wasn't he afraid of the consequences it might bring forth? Even though Ling Wuzhen was the weakest out of all the remnants out there, he was still a remnant no matter what. Compared to those inner sect disciples, he was way stronger. Anyone who was able to get into the true immortal substitute role was a genius amongst geniuses. These were not individuals that ordinary people could hope to compare with. Even if it were Hu Qing combined with every single other disciple present, they were still no match for Ling Wuzhen. And, the only reason why Lin Fan was able to take down the other party was that his own strength had already reached an extremely formidable state. If even someone of a true immortal state could be defeated by Lin Fan, it was needless to talk about all these other people who were just skirting around the boundaries of immemorial ancient state. Only, there was one person on that true immortal substitute roll that had Lin Fan feeling extremely wary towards. And that was the number one on the roll, Qin Shengjian. But, in the past 11 years when Lin Fan had been in the Endless Mainland, that Qin Shengjian had long broken through, and was no longer on this true immortal substitute roll. Thus, Lin Fan was pretty curious as to the sort of existence that Qin Shengjian would be right now. As for the current number one of the true immortal substitute roll, it wasn't someone of the Heaven and Earth sect. That person belonged to some other sect. If there were a chance, Lin Fan would definitely love to exchange blows with someone like that. However, he did not know how far apart the difference between this person and Qin Shengjian would be. At this moment, Lin Fan did not hesitate as he trampled on Ling Wuzhen's face till it was entirely swollen before he relented. Junior brother Lin, that's about enough. When Hu Qing caught sight of that once haughty-looking Ling Wuzhen, he could not help but breathe in a mouthful of cold air. Just what sort of a background did this junior brother Lin hail from? To think that he would be this overbearing. Wasn't he afraid that Ling Wuzhen would find trouble for him after they headed back? However, Hu Qing did not feel that this would cause much of a ruckus back in the sect. At the same time, this Ling Wuzhen knew that he was no match for junior brother Lin as well. Therefore, he should not seek out needless trouble for himself. Only, one must still always be on guard at all times. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good to suffer a disadvantage all for nothing. Yes, let's head back then. This time around, Lin Fan had gained quite a bit from this Earth Abyssal Demon Cave, and felt that it was about time to leave as well. He then cast a last glance at that Ling Wuzhen, who was walloped so badly he did not even look human anymore, and smirked out coldly. Chapter 987 Reverting to his old trade. Chapter 987, Reverting to his old trade. In the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave expedition this time around, the rewards obtained were pretty decent. This was especially the case for Hu Qing and the others, who had obtained quite a few cores. For them, this was a decent fortune that was gained. Out of everything, the most surprising reward was the quasi-supreme grade utmost treasure Scarlet Blood Demon Saber. If they were to exchange that saber for contribution points back in the sect, that would be an astronomical sum to be gained. In fact, there would be many strong disciples or even elders who would come forth and try to exchange for this Scarlet Blood Demon Saber with all sorts of medicines and pills. For the trip to the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave this time around, it is really all thanks to junior brother Lin. Su Hongqian said. That's right, if not for junior brother Lin, we might have already died within there. When Hu Qing thought of a certain event, he felt chills traveling down his spine despite it having passed. Those earth demons were crueler than anything else. Even with his strength as an immemorial ancient state being, he was left with no other way out than death in face of those earth demons. Not only would those earth demons shred his body to pieces, they would even slurp up his fresh blood. The very thought of that was extremely horrifying. Lin Fan gave a calm smile. This feeling of being taken as a messiah by the masses was simply way too pleasurable. It's nothing much. We are all from the same sect, and if we can take care of one another, we naturally should. Lin Fan waved his hands off dismissively while saying coolly. Right now, the group was looking at Lin Fan with a different eye. After all, in this world, power reigns supreme. For someone like junior brother Lin, being so polite and courteous to them even despite being this strong was something that was extremely touching. However, junior brother Lin, you still have to be careful. I don't suppose that Ling Wuzun is going to let things go just like this. Hu Qing said worriedly. It's all right. If the soldiers come, fight them. If the river floods, the earth will stop it. If they want to lose face even back in the sect, they can feel free to come at me by all means. Lin Fan said while chuckling. Su Hongchen and the others thought about it for a moment. Even though they were worried in their hearts, since junior brother Lin did not put it to heart, they naturally did not continue with that topic. I'll head back first. Lin Fan cupped his fists towards everyone. Right now, he had to head back and fuse this scarlet blood demon saber into his own treasures. The Eternal Axe was already a legendary weapon right now. Based on the grading of the Endless Mainland, it could even be considered as an immortal weapon. However, this immortal weapon wasn't exactly perfect just yet. After all, back in the ancient saint world, the laws of the heaven and earth were not fully refined just yet. It was a far cry compared to this Endless Mainland. Therefore, Lin Fan had to continue to put some work into his Eternal Axe. After Lin Fan's departure, Hu Qing spoke up, let us go exchange these cores for contribution points. Junior sister Hongchen will then send them over to junior brother Lin. Alright, even though these contribution points may not be enough to satisfy junior brother Lin's standards, he has just entered the sect after all. There are definitely some places where he could still make use of some contribution points. Su Hongchen replied. Saint Devil Peak. When Lin Fan landed, he realized that Li Qing was already waiting at the entrance. Li Qing was an outer sect disciple while Lin Fan was an inner sect disciple. When he met Lin Fan, he naturally had to address him as senior brother. Senior brother Lin, you've returned. The moment Li Qing caught sight of Lin Fan, he rushed up to greet immediately. What's up? Lin Fan looked at Li Qing carefully, not knowing what this was all about. But, when he caught sight of the things in the latter's hands, he let out a look of surprise. Could he be here to deliver items this time around? Senior brother Lin, this is a 5 elements pill, here for the 5 elements sword wills. With this, you will be able to learn it with only half the effort. Li Qing explained. Lin Fan took the pill over in his hands with some suspicion. He was an inner sect disciple. How could there be so many benefits? This is also welfare from the sect? Lin Fan asked. Li Qing nodded his head, that's right. You're an inner sect disciple, senior brother. From time to time, you will receive welfare. Lin Fan patted down on Li Qing's shoulder, don't lie to me, alright. I have a rough idea what an inner sect disciple is all about now. There are still remnants above me. Li Qing's face changed slightly before he chuckled out, senior brother Lin, actually, your position should have been as a remnant. However, there are only 10 seats available for remnants, and there was no availability. Therefore, even though you're an inner sect disciple, you will still receive the same treatment as remnants should. Oh, so that's the case. I see. When Lin Fan observed Li Qing's expression, he kind of bought it. Otherwise, who would be silly to such an extent that they would keep sending him so much good stuff? Thank you for the troubles then, junior brother Li. Lin Fan replied. It's no trouble at all. If there's nothing else, your junior brother will take his leave first. Li Qing waved his hand away at Lin Fan before leaving the Saint Devil Peak. Lin Fan held the pill in his hand. Right now, the 5 elements sword wills had long been fused by him. Therefore, he naturally had no use for such booster pills anymore. However, popping it down would still gain him quite a bit of experience points nevertheless. Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy as he tossed the pill into his mouth. Ding! Experience points plus 3 million. Popping pills for experience points growth, this was something that Lin Fan hasn't experienced for the longest time now. It was because back in the ancient saint world, pills could barely give him any experience points. But right now, the feeling of having his experience points soar through pills was one that was akin to ascending to the heavens. Within the peak, Lin Fan sat down cross-legged and took out the scarlet blood demon saber immediately, then took out the eternal axe. The heaven and earth smelt came out next. Boom! The heaven and earth smelt was Lin Fan's most tyrannical treasure. A perfect combination of both offense and defense, this was something that was purely overpowered. This eternal axe could be considered as a lower-grade immortal weapon. However, because the laws of the immortal weapon aren't fully refined, its powers are less than 1% of a normal lower-grade immortal weapon. Refine. Lin Fan tossed the eternal axe and the scarlet blood demon saber into the heaven and earth smelt. Craft. Right now, Lin Fan's proficiency in crafting weapons was at a pinnacle state, allowing him to draw out the essence of the scarlet blood demon saber into the eternal axe. Shing. The smelt vibrated slightly. The eternal axe started giving off a slight aura of an immortal weapon. However, because it was in the heaven and earth smelt, the aura naturally did not leak out at all. Ding. Congratulations on refining success. Lin Fan took out the eternal axe as his lips curled into a look of satisfaction. As for that scarlet blood demon saber, the only thing left of it was some scrap debris. It had basically no function left any longer. Eternal axe. Grade. Lower grade immortal weapon. Right now, some of the treasures he had with him, such as the demon city and others, could not evolve at all due to lack of materials. However, he knew that he could go searching for some legendary items if he had the chance, so that he could raise the levels of all the treasures he had on him. By that time, he would truly be domineering. Poor. Way too poor. Lin Fan knew that he was really poor right now. There weren't many things he could show off from his inventory right now. He did not have any pills or any legendary items that were crafted out. As for those Shengyang pills, ever since he arrived at this place, there was practically no FC King use of them anymore. Those Shengyang pills might have been some decent items back in the ancient saint world. But ever since he arrived at this endless mainland, it had turned into some inferior product. This was angry-worthy, rage-probable, and tears-inducing all at the same time. If he wanted to raise his cultivation state, he only had two goals right now. First, killing powerful beings. Second, popping these elixirs. At this moment, Lin Fan entered a state of deep thought. Seemed like he had to go out and explore for a bit. Either that, or he would have to go back to his old trade. Eventually, Lin Fan thought it through hard and deep. Seemed like the best way was still for him to revert to his old trade. Chapter 988 Not a Single Believer. Chapter 988. Not a Single Believer. The trip to the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave did not cause much of a huge stir. Within the sect, Lin Fan did not face any acts of vengeance from Ling Wuzun either. However, the changes to the true immortal substitute role did rouse some attention of the masses. Somehow, Shui Tianzi had vanished from the role entirely. For such a thing to happen, there could only be two possible explanations. The first was that Shui Tianzi had turned into a true immortal, and the second was that he had fallen. But naturally, there was no chance for the first situation to happen. Therefore, he could have only fallen. Otherwise, there was truly no other way to go about this. Initially, Ling Wuzun had wanted to cause trouble for Lin Fan. But after he returned and thought about it carefully, he started realizing just how horrifying everything had been. For him to be defeated in the hands of this disciple naturally mean that his strength was not enough to compete with the other party. If he were to truly insist on dueling it out with the other party, his outcome might not be any good. Even though he was a remnant, there were still internal strife and politics amongst the various remnants. Furthermore, with his strength, he was the weakest out of all the remnants. However, there was a disciple who had turned into a remnant recently. This allowed him to be second from the last, which had him heave out a sigh of relief. No-vel-p in .c ohm. Only, this was a vengeance that he would definitely seek out one day. He was just waiting for the opportune time. Lin Fan walked around the sect observing everything that was happening, trying to find a path to success. Within the sect, there was also a place that was similar to a marketplace. There were many disciples that were conducting business here. Calamity breaking pill. There's only a single one here and it costs just 10,000 contribution points. Be it walking by or passing by, you must not miss this. Old Ancient God Guard Shard. Costs only 100,000 contribution points. Lin Fan's face might have been expressionless, but a thought was forming in his mind. Yours truly was proficient in cultivating pills and crafting weapons. If he were to revert to his old trade, he would definitely have a bright future in it. Those contribution points obtained might be able to get him some decent exchanges back in the sect. Furthermore, there were some extremely powerful mystic skills of the martial arts that required contribution points to be exchanged for. That 5 elements sword will from earlier on had already given Lin Fan a taste of its wondrous effects, raising his personal sword will's cultivation. Su Hongchen had sent over 3,000 contribution points for Lin Fan. Those were exchanged for with the cores of the earth demons that were killed in the Earth Abyssal Demon Cave. Initially, Lin Fan had not wanted to take them. But eventually, he could only accept them. Take a look and slowly shop. Homegrown herbs here that could be used to cultivate all sorts of high-grade pills. There was a myriad of herbs that were displayed before a disciple. These herbs were no high-end stuff. But, they could cultivate out pills that were sought after by many disciples. How much are you selling these herbs for? After observing for quite some time, Lin Fan headed forth and asked. Senior brother there, which type do you require? Even after hawking here for a long time, no disciples were coming forth to purchase them from this disciple. Therefore, he was naturally getting flustered. His cultivation state wasn't high, and with that, he did not dare to head out to dangerous secret grounds. He could only grow some herbs for himself from time to time and accumulate some contribution points with them in order to exchange for pills and martial arts mystic skills. Everything. When he heard Lin Fan's words, his eyes shone with a glimmer. He was going to be rich now. Senior brother there, you only need 5,000 contribution points to take all of them home. The disciple chuckled out. Lin Fan took a quick glance. Bloody hell, he didn't have enough contribution points. 3,000 or no deal. Lin Fan replied. Ah, senior brother, how can you do that? Even if you're trying to slash the price, isn't that a little too much? If it doesn't work, then forget it. I'll just look around more. Lin Fan had no time to waste with nonsense right now. 3,000 contribution points was his entire life savings. Furthermore, he would never try to slash the price. Noticing that Lin Fan was about to leave, the disciple got nervous. He then let out a pained expression. Senior brother, please hold your steps. 3,000, so be it. From his token, Lin Fan transferred all the 3,000 contribution points and kept the bunch of herbs. After Lin Fan's departure, the disciple broke out into a grin. Oh, I've done it now. I've earned big. Who knew that selling herbs would be this profitable? He had spent 100 contribution points purchasing the seeds and cultivating them patiently for a short period of time. Even though time had been wasted, the returns were just exhilarating. At a place where no one else was present, Lin Fan took out the herbs. There were a total of 20 herbs. Ding. Discovered mysterious light grass. Ding. Discovered spirit hell grass. ... At this moment, Lin Fan spread out his fingers and wrung his wrist slightly. A ball of flames burst forth as he tossed all the herbs within it. No other pill cultivation master could cultivate pills like this. But for Lin Fan, his mastery of cultivating pills had already been perfected. As such, cultivating these pills was something that could be done by him with extreme ease. Pills through thought. The medicinal powers of the herbs gathered within the flames as the impurities were all purged out, leaving only the essences. Being able to cultivate out pills with a flip of his hands, furthermore at a success rate of 100%. If this were known by anyone else, it would be too horrifying for them. Ding. Congratulations on cultivating Mixed Yuan Powers Pill. Mixed Yuan Powers Pill. Able to recover powers within a single breath. Ding. Congratulations on cultivating Damage Leaving Pill. Damage Leaving Pill. No matter how severe the injuries, one will be able to recover from it. Cultivating pills of this sort was something that Lin Fan had expected long ago. These herbs were not of particularly excellent quality. For them to be able to create pills of this level was something that could only be described as heaven revolting. If it were anyone else, they might only be able to cultivate out some simpler pills. At the ends of the marketplace, Lin Fan brought over a random table and placed his pills on it before shouting out an advertising. Be it walking by or passing by, you must not miss this. Selling pills that can safeguard your life. Once you have these pills with you, even your mommy doesn't have to worry about you roaming out in the world. Lin Fan yelled at the top of his voice. Amongst the different pills, those that could occasionally raise one's strength were the most popular. However, those that could recover up powers or injuries were unusually welcome as well. This single shout of Lin Fan attracted quite a lot of attention from the masses. What are those pills? The medicinal powers seem to be extremely thick. Some of the disciples started gathering over. However, they had never seen these pills before in their lives. Therefore, they were naturally curious towards it. Lin Fan took the Mixed Yuan Powers pill in his hands and started bragging about it. This is a pill that can help you recover your powers within a single breath. Think about it. If you guys were out there meeting with some enemies that were on equal grounds with you, and the victory could not be decided in a single instant, who do you guys think will stand victorious at the end of it all? The surrounding disciples replied without even having to think about it, of course the side with a deeper depth of powers. That's right. This fellow brother here has got it right. As long as you have this pill, you will definitely be able to recover your powers in a single breath. Lin Fan waved the pill in his hands. What about that pill over there? The disciples asked. Oh ho, that is one hell of an incredible pill. It's called the damage-leaving pill. No matter how severe your injuries are, as long as you have a single breath left, you will be able to recover from it. Don't you guys think that this pill is extremely sick? Lin Fan praised his own pill without holding back at all. However, everything that Lin Fan had just said did not seem too believable to the disciples who were present. How could such pills exist? Well, I do know of mixed yuan powers pills, but damage-leaving pills. That sounds way too terrifying. If it were truly as you have said, it could even be considered as an immortal pill. That's right, only immortal pills could provide effects as such. However, there are no laws of the immortal Tao within these pills of yours. At this moment, the surrounding disciples started discussing amongst themselves. None of them would believe a word that Lin Fan said. Right now, Lin Fan was flustered. Bloody hell, was he truly not going to be able to sell everything out? Chapter 989 Witness the Moment of Miracle. Chapter 989, Witness the Moment of Miracle. Cough, cough, I am an inner sect disciple. My credibility is assured, and there's definitely no falsehoods here. If there's anything that's fake about these two types of pills, I would definitely pay 10 for every fake one. Lin Fan yelled out. Then, how many contribution points do you require for them? Some of the disciples did have some intent towards them. One for 50,000 contribution points. Not expensive at all, Lin Fan replied. There were a total of 10 pills here. With 50,000 a pop, he would be able to gain 500,000 contribution points if he could sell them all. This was not an exorbitant price. Lin Fan had checked around as well, this was the market price. But, when the price came out, some of the disciples made way. To think that he would say that this wasn't expensive at all. This price was practically sky high. Hooey, the price aside first, it's hard to tell if it's real or fake. A man wearing green robes walked over. When the surrounding disciples caught sight of who it was, they involuntarily made a path for him as they started discussing in hushed whispers. That's Nan Gongming, the one who's titled as the fraud fighter amongst the inner sect disciples. When Nan Gongming came before Lin Fan, he looked at the pills that were displayed on the table. You claim that these pills have such miraculous effects. But, do you know of the immortal pill within the sect, the endless Shenong pill? The endless Shenong pill could be considered as a godly item for healing. No matter how severe one's injuries were, they would be able to recover within the time of a single joss stick. If one wanted to exchange for an immortal pill of that sort, they would require 100,000 contribution points. And, the price that Lin Fan had declared right now was half the price of the endless Shenong pill. Yet, the effects he boasted of were way more powerful than the endless Shenong pill. The moment the surrounding disciples heard of Nan Gongming's question, all of them started discussing in hushed whispers. That's right, the effects of that godly healing item within the sect, the endless Shenong pill, are similar to this pill right here. It is an immortal pill. I've had the affinity to come across that pill once in my life. There were traces of the laws of the immortal Tao within the pill itself. Just by sniffing in the aroma, I could already feel myself being revitalized mentally. That's something that this damage-leaving pill could not hope to compare with. Seems like this pill must definitely be a fake then. Nan Gongming is famous for exposing frauds. Do you know how many frauds and their ploys he has ruined so far? ... At this moment, Lin Fan was about to explode. Bloody hell, did this bunch of fellas really think that yours truly was someone who would sell fake pills? That was way too shitty of a situation, wasn't it? I don't know anything about that endless Shenong pill that you speak of. However, I do know that my pills possess such effects. Lin Fan looked at Nan Gongming while saying, Hooey, I don't believe it. Nan Gongming shook his head as his eyes shone with a firm disbelief in them. Other than the fact that the medicinal aura of your pills is slightly stronger, what other trademark characteristics of immortal pills do they possess? Every single immortal pill possesses the laws of the immortal Tao. That is something that masters have created by collecting countless precious and valuable herbs. As for these pills of yours, there's no way they could be real. Therefore, I hope that you can just leave this place as soon as possible. In this place, as long as Nan Gongming is around, no fraudster will be able to get away with their deception. Nan Gongming declared loudly with a harsh tone as though he was extremely serious right now. Piok, well said, senior brother Nan is indeed the beacon of light in our hearts. If these pills were truly as miraculous as you've made them out to be, how could they be sold here? The surrounding disciples started applauding loudly. They were thoroughly impressed with Nan Gongming. In this place, as long as there were disciples who were selling fake items, Nan Gongming would definitely make an appearance. Using that professional judgment and knowledge of his, he would expose all the mistruths within the truths. At this moment, Nan Gongming looked over at Lin Fan. That expression of his was as though he was just waiting for this disciple to refute him. On the other side, Lin Fan was getting a little exasperated. Yours truly was just trying to sell some pills and get some contribution points to make a living. They refused to believe in the wonders of yours truly's pills. Fine, since that was the case, he would just have to make them believe it. Your name is Nan Gongming, right? Lin Fan asked. That's right, I am an inner sect disciple, Nan Gongming. Nan Gongming glared straight at Lin Fan while saying. Step forward a little, Lin Fan replied. Nan Gongming did not know what this fellow was trying to achieve with this. Thereafter, he stood before Lin Fan. What are you trying to do? Has your shame of being exposed by me turned into rage? Lin Fan looked around at the surrounding masses. Everyone, since you guys don't believe in me, I just have to show you guys a demonstration of its effects. The surrounding disciples did not catch Lin Fan's drift at all. But at this moment, something that shocked everyone happened. Bam! Lin Fan kicked out at Nan Gongming's crotch immediately. It seemed as though time had stopped completely at this instant. Nan Gongming looked at Lin Fan in disbelief. A sensation of pain then began to surge up as a series of wild howls rushed out of his throat. Lin Fan did not say anything more as he just raised his fists and sent out a flurry of fists to wallop Nan Gongming to a pulp. You guys can choose not to believe, fine. But right now, yours truly is going to prove to you guys in your faces the tyrannical nature of yours truly's pills. Be beaten. Someone is being beaten up over here. Because senior brother Nan exposed the other party's fake pills, his shame has turned into rage as he is walloping out at senior brother Nan right now. But, senior brother Nan's strength is not weak at all. How come he is unable to fight back at all? Nan Gongming was absolutely stupefied right now. He hadn't expected that things would turn out as such. He wanted to retaliate, but he realized all of a sudden that he had no way of fighting back at all. Ugh! A punch flew out. A stream of blood sprayed out into the air. The surrounding disciples were all just retreating as far as they could right now. At the same time, some of them started yelling out in shock. Someone is being murdered right here. Can anyone come and help? Senior brother Nan is going to be killed by the other party. Some of the people who had no idea what was going on over here rushed over because of the commotion that was being caused. But when they arrived at this place and saw that Nan Gongming was being trampled down and walloped by a disciple, they exclaimed in shock. Stop that, you can't fight anymore. Senior brother Nan's aura is getting weaker by the moment. Are you really intent on murdering someone? This is our sect, you can't do that in here. Right now, Lin Fan was getting extremely fluid with his punches. Fist after fist, they rained down on Nan Gongming's body. As for Nan Gongming, all he could do was lie there while his eyes shone with a look of despair. He felt that death was approaching him by the second, as though he could pass away at any moment now. No, Nan Gongming screamed out in his heart. However, his aura was being lost out into the surroundings extremely quickly right now. Lin Fan inhaled a deep breath before he came down with an ultimate blow. Initially, he had not thought of any way to prove his pills. But, ever since this Nan Gongming had appeared, Lin Fan had finally thought of it. Wouldn't it be easy if he could just whack someone half to death? Huff. Finally, Lin Fan came to a stop. He then looked at Nan Gongming, who was lying on the ground motionlessly, looking as though he was hanging on his very last thread of life. The surrounding disciples gasped out in horror as they retreated even further back. Each and every one of them let out a frightened look as though they were really afraid that this guy might do the same to them as he did to Nan Gongming if he were displeased with them. Lin Fan relaxed with his breathing before raising his hand. All right, everyone here. Watch properly now. Next up, it is time to witness the moment of miracle. Whether or not the damage-leaving pill possesses the effects I claim for it to have will depend on this moment entirely. At this moment, Lin Fan took up a single pill, and after prying Nan Gongming's mouth open, he pushed it in. All of you watch closely right now. Lin Fan crossed his arms and waited patiently. The surrounding disciples watched with skepticism. They did not know what was going to happen. Chapter 990 The Path of Righteousness. Chapter 990, The Path of Righteousness. In order to prove the awesomeness of his pills, Lin Fan was giving it his all as well. As for this Nan Gongming, he could only be considered to be unlucky to have received this round of beating. Wanting to stand up for others without any true strength. That was certainly a recipe for disaster. The surrounding disciples watched the scene unfold with curiosity. Nan Gongming was convulsing while spitting out blood from his mouth. It was an extremely horrifying sight to behold. If this were to continue on, Nan Gongming would definitely die. But right at this moment, something that stunned the masses happened. They did not know what was going on, but a ball of light burst forth from Nan Gongming's body all of a sudden. The light was extremely soothing, following which, the areas where he was injured started recovering gradually. What's going on here? Nan Gongming, who was initially lying still like a dead dog, bolted up to stand all of a sudden. He then looked left and right, however, he could not tell of any issues at all. At this moment, it was as though Nan Gongming had suddenly recalled that he was walloped by someone to the brink of death. When his gaze landed on Lin Fan, Nan Gongming was enraged. "It's you." But that rage did not last for even a single second when Nan Gongming's expression changed. His face was then filled with shock. "Weren't you about to kill me earlier on?" Nan Gongming exclaimed out, but, after checking himself thoroughly, he realized that there were no wounds on his body at all. There was nothing wrong at all. The surrounding disciples were equally dumbfounded. Just what in the world was going on right now? Holy FCK, wasn't senior brother Nan on the brink of death just now? How has he recovered completely all of a sudden? I have no idea, but this person had fed senior brother Nan that damage-leaving pill or something, and he has now recovered. Immortal pill. Is that truly an immortal pill? That is something that's even more incredible than immortal pills. Even the endless Shenong pill requires a joss stick's worth of time in order to recover. And there's also no way one could recover as though they were in the complete pink of health as well. Lin Fan yelled out at this moment, "All right. Everyone has seen the effects for yourselves now. There are still 4 more of these damage-leaving pills, and 5 of those mixed yuan powers pill. If you have the need for them, come and order now. All of these are life-saving elixirs. Don't miss it now. If you miss it, there won't be any left." Lin Fan promoted his pills heavily. If he did not show some stuff, it truly would not have worked. At this moment, the surrounding disciples were finally moved. Initially, they had truly not believed in him. But right now, they realized that these pills were just simply godly. "Give me one of that." An inner sect disciple yelled out. Having a pill as such was as good as having another life altogether. If he were to have to fight with others or explore any secret grounds in the future, this would definitely keep him safer by a huge margin. "Both types of pills. I want one of each. I want the damage-leaving pill. I want the mixed yuan powers pill." All of a sudden, all the disciples had Lin Fan drowned. Nan Gongming was just staring at everything blankly with a wide-open jaw. He was then pushed outside by the surrounding disciples. He felt that there was truly something not right about this situation here. Right now, it was as though he was completely fine. He recalled being walloped cruelly by the other party initially. But, despite having endured that round of beating, there wasn't even a single bit of injury on his body at this point. So, could that still be considered as being whacked by the other party? At this moment, Nan Gongming went deep into his thoughts. He felt that this was an issue he would have to think long and hard about. At this moment, there were simply way so many people trying to make purchase that Lin Fan was getting overwhelmed. There are too many people. The pills are limited. Alright, I'm going to start auctioning now. The first damage-leaving pill will go at a starting price of 50,000 contribution points. Make it 51,000. I'll make it 52,000. 60,000. At this moment, the entire place was bustling with noise. Some of the surrounding disciples who were setting up their own stalls nearby looked at Lin Fan dumbfounded. To think that he could bloody do it like that as well. After he had auctioned out the pills, Lin Fan realized that he had 800,000 contribution points. He was rich now. To think that he could have sold a few ordinary pills for 800,000 contribution points. Lin Fan felt that there was a huge potential in this trade. As for those disciples who had not managed to get any pills, their faces were filled with disappointment. Some of them were downright poor. When they looked at others splurging their contribution points to buy those pills, they could only watch miserably. Even though the path of cultivation was one that depended on strength entirely, it was still pretty depressing when one caught sight of others with an immense amount of wealth at times. Lin Fan left the marketplace, and was about to head to the sect area to check if there were any good items up for exchange. But at this moment, he discovered that Nan Gongming was following behind him. "What do you want?" Lin Fan turned around asking. Nan Gongming looked at Lin Fan. That disposition of righteousness and justice that he had earlier on was completely gone right now. Replacing it was a meek and weak look. The holy fraud fighter, Nan Gongming, could have been considered to have failed entirely this time around. Taking in a deep breath, Nan Gongming said, "I wish to work with you." "What do you mean work with me?" Lin Fan asked in bewilderment. What was there to work with about this? He did not understand. "I know that you want to sell pills. But, these pills of yours would not be believed by everyone. I'm willing to be the test subject for it," Nan Gongming replied. Lin Fan froze up. What in the world was this fella talking about? He wanted to be the test subject. This was pretty outrageous, wasn't it? However, in Lin Fan's opinion, this guy's words weren't lacking merit either. The pills that he cultivated were truly a far cry in comparison with the other pills available here. Those pills that he had earlier on could only be considered as normal pills that did not have any particularly outstanding effects. But, to think that in the eyes of these people, they would all be immortal pills. How was Lin Fan to Mother Sea King explain that? Lin Fan could definitely create true immortal pills. He would just require godly herbs, that was all. But, to think that these pills that he had created could give the immortal pills here around for their money in the eyes of these disciples. Without a doubt, it was only natural for them to assume that any pills with such effects could be considered as immortal pills then. However, these pills of his did not possess any laws of the immortal Tao. That would make it seem too fake as well. But, if he were to have a test subject around, that would make things way simpler. "How much contribution points do you want for it?" Lin Fan asked. Nan Gongming thought about it for a moment before replying, 5,000 contribution points per day. "Alright, deal." Lin Fan nodded his head. Given the speed at which Lin Fan earned contribution points right now, 5,000 contribution points were something he could afford with ease. The moment Nan Gongming heard Lin Fan agreeing to it, he too heaved a sigh of relief. Even though he was an inner sect disciple, he did not have a good life. Because he was a fraud fighter, there were quite a number of disciples who did not like to hang out with him. Therefore, they did not even wish to go along with him to secret grounds. As such, he could not even get 10,000 contribution points per month, as he had to go to the secret grounds alone. At the same time, there was an extremely high danger for him roaming the secret grounds solo. In a moment of carelessness, he could very well fall to the dangers within. However, the path of cultivation was one that required a truckload of resources. If he did not have contribution points, it was truly very hard to continue raising his cultivation state. Therefore, when Nan Gongming realized that the pills that Lin Fan was selling were absolutely real, he contemplated about this matter for a long time. He realized that there was a great business opportunity to be made here, one that would help him get the contribution points that he required. After Lin Fan discussed and agreed to it with Nan Gongming, they settled on a time to meet up the next day. The both of them then went on and worked about things their own ways. Chapter 991 So Savage to Himself. Chapter 991, So Savage to Himself. Carrying 800,000 contribution points with him, Lin Fan felt like a mini tycoon right now as he arrived at the exchange point of the sect. After browsing through quickly, he realized that some of the items were truly expensive. Taking the 5 elements sword wills that he had cultivated for example, that was a combination of 5 different types of sword wills, and was ranked number 21 in the entire sect. If one wanted to exchange for it, that would cost them 3,100,000 contribution points. How could that not be considered as exorbitant? Given his current contribution points, if he wanted to exchange for those items, that would undoubtedly be just a dream. At the same time, he found some immortal pills. The healing pills were all priced at 100,000 contribution points and above. And, the amount of contribution points required for the pills that could help one in raising their cultivation states were even more humongous. For most people, these immortal pills were extremely incredible. But Lin Fan knew that he could create a world of pills as long as he had the appropriate amount of materials and ingredients. He took a general look at the entire collection. Lin Fan did take a liking to some of the martial arts mystic skills available. However, these few mystic skills were slightly more expensive, and he was short of at least 1,000,000 contribution points. He then headed over to the marketplace and purchased some other herbs. He did not purchase those expensive herbs and chose to purchase some cheap and normal ones instead. He was still preparing to create those 2 types of pills. The next day, Lin Fan met up with Nan Gongming. This time around, he had cultivated out a total of 20 pills. If he could have all of them sold out, he would definitely earn till he could fly into the heavens. However, Nan Gongming had suggested for them to not head over to the marketplace area this time around. The disciples there were poorer. Most of the disciples who are richer would be over at the Pill's Peak, using the fire of heaven and earth there to cultivate pills. Nan Gongming said. Lin Fan knew what sort of a place Pill's Peak was. This was a place that was dedicated for the disciples in the sect to cultivate pills at. However, there was a fee for it. A single day at the Pill's Peak required 10,000 contribution points. The flames there were the heaven and earth fires and were extremely beneficial to cultivating pills. Not only could they raise the innate quality of the pills, they could also improve the success rate of cultivating pills. Nan Gongming felt that they could probably reap in even greater rewards if they had headed over there. When Lin Fan and Nan Gongming arrived at the Pill's Peak, a series of fragrant pill aroma fluttered over. This had Lin Fan feeling that this was a world of pills in itself. This place was practically on the brink of overcrowding, and numerous disciples were conducting business over here as well. With that, there were a number of them who were selling expensive high-grade pills. Breaking a mortal pill, 1 for 100,000 contribution points. Someone was advertising. If someone wanted to exchange for a breaking a mortal pill within the sect, they would have to cough up 200,000 contribution points. And the main reason was that this pill could help raise the probability of one breaking through to the true immortal state by a large percentage. However, the breaking immortal pills that were sold here could naturally not compare with those exchanged for by the sect. There was naturally some small difference in terms of quality. Alright, time to start our business. Lin Fan said. Nan Gongming started advertising out for him next. Take a look, there are immortal pills being sold here. Damage-leaving pills. No matter how severe your injuries are, you will definitely recover from them. Mixed Yuan Powers pills. You can recover all of your powers within a single breath. Be it walking by or passing by, make sure you do not miss it. Nan Gongming's shout from the bottom of his core did attract the attention of quite a few people. Lin Fan felt that his chance of getting rich was about to approach. Therefore, he started shouting out as well, take a look at these pills here. They are practically godly items for healing up your wounds. Once you have these pills, you will no longer have to be afraid when going out. Even if you use up your powers completely, you do not have to worry about it either. What pills? For them to have such capabilities, are they immortal pills? What's this? There isn't even a single law of the immortal Tao within them, and yet you dare to proclaim them as immortal pills. The medicinal aura seems pretty decent. But, I suppose that they are just normal pills, aren't they? The disciples who had been attracted over did not have much of an interest when they caught sight of these pills here. Some of them who were preparing to cultivate their own pills were all tycoons themselves. When they heard that there were immortal pills up for sale, they naturally rushed over here with impatience. Healing pills were something that were extremely precious. If they were to be in a secret ground or to get into a fight with someone else, a healing pill with an exceptionally remarkable effect could often turn the tides of the battle. But, when they caught sight of the pills, they lost every single bit of excitement they had. What the FCK was this? There wasn't even a single law of the immortal Tao in it, and yet he claimed that they were immortal pills. When Lin Fan caught sight of how the disciples were preparing to leave after taking a glance at the pills, he was unbothered by it. He then looked over at Nan Gongming. Right now was the time for him to display his worth. Everyone, hold up there. Nan Gongming shouted out loudly. Everyone was curious, not knowing what this fellow wanted. After all, the time of everyone here was extremely precious. How could they possibly let it be wasted by someone like him? Nan Gongming looked over at the masses. I know that all of you do not believe that these are immortal pills. That's right, they are indeed not immortal pills. And yet, they possess effects that are even more wondrous than immortal pills. Right now, I hope that every single one of you does not blink your eyes. Because, it is now time to witness the moment of miracle. The surrounding disciples continued to look at Nan Gongming while still trying to figure out just what he was up to. It was as though they were giving him permission to continue with his act. Lin Fan felt that his time to step up had come. But, just as Lin Fan was about to strike out, Nan Gongming held out his hand. There's no need. I have an even better idea. Lin Fan was stunned as he put down his fist. He did not know what Nan Gongming was intending to do. At this moment, he saw Nan Gongming take out a long saber before placing it in front of the masses. Can all of you inspect and check out this saber? Nan Gongming asked. The disciples who were now attracted used their hands to touch it. Instantly, they could feel a sharp gleam that was transmitted from the surface of the saber. This is one good saber. That's right, if you were to refine it slightly further, it could perhaps even turn into a lower-grade utmost treasure. This saber was something that Nan Gongming had obtained by a chance encounter within a secret ground. At the same time, it was his most precious treasure right now. I hope that every one of you will not blink your eyes later on. Nan Gongming yelled out before wielding the long saber in his hands. The many disciples who were watching this were all shocked. What was going on here? How was he going to prove himself? All of a sudden, everyone who were watching the scene felt their jaws dropping. Holy FCK! Lin Fan, who already had some idea about how this was going to play out, could not help but cuss out when it actually happened. This Nan Gongming was way too savage, wasn't he? Blood sprayed out across the entire ground, as the surrounding disciples stood equally flabbergasted. He is mutilating himself right now. Holy FCK, does he have to be this savage? He is practically going to die. Nan Gongming had stabbed that saber right into his stomach. Even if one's cultivation state were at the supreme state, they would bloody hell not be able to endure this. Nan Gongming pulled out the long saber from his stomach and stabbed it in yet again. The surrounding disciples were practically frozen right now. They could not understand just what in the world was going on. Wasn't he just promoting those pills? Was there a need for him to mutilate himself as such? Nan Gongming was kneeling onto the ground right now, his face grimaced extremely terribly. Painful. This was simply way too painful. Do my injuries look really grave right now? Nan Gongming raised his head and looked at the masses. The disciples who were just frozen right now nodded their heads furiously. This was definitely some mother sea king hell of an injury. If this weren't considered grave, what else could be considered grave? At this moment, Lin Fan hurriedly placed the pill in the hands of Nan Gongming, who took the pill and demonstrated it before the masses. This is the damage-leaving pill. No matter how severe your injuries are, you will be able to recover from it. And in the next moment, he swallowed the pill whole. Lin Fan could not help but admire this Nan Gongming right now as well. To think that this guy could be this savage towards himself. Chapter 992 Raise. Chapter 992, Raise. Pills peak. There were relentless cries of exclamations rising right now. Look at that, the injuries of that guy have suddenly recovered all of a sudden for absolutely no reason at all. Mother ** sea king hell. That's way too unreal, isn't it? That was a godly weapon that was on the brink of breaking through to become a lower grade utmost treasure. To think that he could actually recover from it after stabbing himself to that extent. What's the name of that pill again? Damage-leaving pill. That's impossible, that pill doesn't have any laws of the immortal Tao at all. It can't be an immortal pill. But, if it isn't an immortal pill, how does it actually possess such healing powers? I recall that even the godly endless Shenong pill of the sect isn't as sick as this, is it? Shock. Amazement. When the surrounding disciples first heard that it was an immortal pill, they were extremely curious in their hearts. But, when they saw that the pill did not have any laws of the immortal Tao, they did not bother much with it any longer. When Nan Gongming took out that long saber, they just took it as though they were watching a show, and were trying to see what this guy was prepared to do. And as Nan Gongming stabbed himself with the long saber, they were totally dumbfounded. That was just self-mutilation. But, when they saw his injuries recovering after consuming that pill, they were even more astounded. Everyone, you've seen it, right? This is the magical damage-leaving pill. No matter how severe your injuries are, you will be able to recover from it. Nan Gongming opened up his upper shirt and revealed a body without even a single scratch on it. This was totally sick to the extremes. Everyone's herd turned around in unison. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Their gazes were all focused on those pills right now. This damage-leaving pill was even sicker than the endless Shenong pill of the sect. The endless Shenong pill required a joss stick's time to recover from injuries. But, this pill was even better. All it took was the blink of an eye. If they were to clash against someone else in the future, this was definitely a pill that could help them turn the tables around. Lin Fan realized that the expression on the faces of these people were getting off right now. Each of them emitted a gaze that was extremely thirsty and chilling to look at. I'll take all of those pills. How many contribution points do you want for them? Name your price. A second-generation disciple clamored out. He was extremely rich, furthermore, his father was an elder. As the son of an elder, he was what people would call a second generation of the sect. Contribution points and whatnot, he had no lack of them. He had a truckload of money anyway. FCK, just someone like you and you think that you can snatch this away from me? Just because your father is an elder. My contribution points are no way less than yours. Everyone, let's not get agitated right now. There are quite a number of pills here. Let us be fair now and purchase it one by one. Let's not disrupt the harmony here. Get lost, FCK face. These pills are as good as a second life. The number of pills you have would equal to the number of lives you have. What is harmony in the face of this? That's right, the sect's grand competition is coming up soon. Your father here is someone who intends to go up against the remnants. As long as I can FCK those remnants over, I can turn into a remnant myself. Remnants, those are nothing. As long as I can get my hands on these pills, I can even challenge those powerful beings on the true immortal substitute role. At this moment, the entire place was in a state of chaos. For these pills, everyone was almost on the brink of breaking out into fights. Somewhere not too far away, Ling Wuzun caught sight of the commotion up ahead and furrowed his brows. What's up with that place? Senior brother, let me go check it out. A disciple beside him rushed up ahead immediately to scout for information. As long as he could pander up to this senior brother here, his future ahead would be extremely bright for sure. It didn't take long before the disciple scurried back. Senior brother, someone is selling pills over there. The pill that he's selling is called the damage-leaving pill. No matter how severe your injuries are, you will be able to recover from them. Those disciples who are looking to purchase it are even saying that they would make use of this to challenge the remnants. The disciple reported. HMPH. Pointless struggles. Intersect disciples are intersect disciples indeed. All they can do is daydream. Ling Wuzun remarked in disdain. To think that even some ordinary intersect disciples would dare to daydream of depending on some pills to win against the remnants. This was just dreaming in broad daylight. Senior brother, you're right. All of these disciples are never thinking about improving themselves, and dream of depending on external help every day. Honestly, they're just dreaming. The disciple buttered up Ling Wuzun. Let's go. Ling Wuzun wasn't bothered about this stuff as he turned around and proceeded to leave. The situation that Lin Fan was faced with right now was extremely serious. These disciples seemed as though they were about to devour him right now. It seemed that they would tear at his life unless he sold the pills to them. But there was only a limited quantity of pills available. For a moment or so, things were really pretty awkward right now. Lin Fan focused his mind and shouted out, 19 pills here, the highest bidder wins. At this moment, the entire scene broke out into chaos once more as the tycoons started yelling out their offers at the top of their lungs. Some of those who only had a bit of money could only be filled with a face of regret. How were they to compete against something like this? They just couldn't. In just a few calls, the price skyrocketed to 2 million. And by the looks of the situation, this wasn't even the limit just yet. There was still a lot of room for the price to continue growing. Eventually, the pills were sold to a huge tycoon. The price had eventually been raised to 3,010,000. 3,010,000 contribution points. This was an astronomical figure. Most ordinary disciples could never ever earn this amount of contribution points. The disciple who had obtained the pills looked down at the rest of them like a king right now. Anything that I, Ma Tengyan, want to get my hands on, no one else can get it away from me. Ma Tengyan was filled with pride right now. With the flip of his hands, 3,010,000 contribution points were spent. But even then, he did not feel a pinch. Awesome. Seeing a tycoon as such, Lin Fan was extremely impressed. However, compared to Nan Gongming, this was truly child's play still. The truly awesome one was still Nan Gongming. That performance, that skill, if it was any ordinary person, they would not have had the guts to do it. The reason why these pills could fetch such a high price was one that could not be separated from Nan Gongming's name. If not for that live demonstration, the atmosphere of the scene would definitely not have been this hyped up. Lin Fan left the place with Nan Gongming. Brother, that was incredible. Lin Fan patted Nan Gongming's shoulder saying. Nan Gongming chuckled out, my 5,000 contribution points. Lin Fan swiped out instantly, make that 10,000. Nan Gongming waved his hand, if I said 5,000, it is 5,000. I, Nan Gongming, am a man of my words. But, since you insist on it this badly, 10,000 it is then. Mother *CKER. Shameless. Lin Fan had initially thought that this Nan Gongming truly had character. But, who would have thought that this fellow was this shameless? With 3 million contribution points in his hands, Lin Fan could go exchange for some good items right now. Some of the mystic skills of the martial arts within the sect were pretty decent indeed. They had amassed the wisdom of their predecessors. Combined with the contribution points from before, Lin Fan's total life savings were close to 4 million contribution points right now. With them, Lin Fan exchanged 3 martial arts mystic skills. Movement mystic skill, reaching heaven in a single bound. Even though the name of this movement skill was domineering, it didn't mean that one could truly reach the heavens with a single step. Although, this was admittedly quite a bit stronger than his so near, yet so far. Within the entire sect, this movement mystic skill was ranked number 4 amongst all movement skills. As for the other 3 movement skills, it was claimed that one could reach the ends of the world at least using them, even if they couldn't reach the stars. Fist mystic skill, Fist of Origin. This was a pretty decent fist skill. However, one could only cultivate it if they were a true immortal. But, for someone like Lin Fan, none of that mattered. With the system, there was no restriction on any skills for him. When he deployed it, it possessed both the laws of the immortal Tao as well as the might of the heavens. Compared to the fist of true immortal that was displayed by Qing Yangzi back then, this was even stronger. As for the third martial arts mystic skill, it wasn't one that belonged to the Heaven and Earth sect. It was a mystic skill of the Buddha race, something that could complement the great Buddha's light of purification. The remaining contribution points were used by Lin Fan entirely to purchase some high-quality herbs. He wanted to cultivate pills for himself and pop them down furiously so that he could bring his own strength to the full cultivation state. Chapter 993 I'll consider it. Chapter 993, I'll consider it. Ding, learn, ding, learn, ... He learned all 3 of those martial arts mystic skills and fused them together. Reaching heavens in a single bound was fused together with sinior, yet so far. There was no need to fuse the Fist of Origin though. As for the purifying Buddha's heart, it formed a new mystic skill after being fused with the great Buddha's light of purification. Even though the fusion had caused both of the mystic skills levels to drop to level 1, the powers that this level 1 wielded was in no way inferior to the previous levels. In fact, it was even more powerful than before. Now that he was settled with the skills, it was time to move on with the real show. Lin Fan raised his finger slightly as a row of precious herbs floated out before him gently. These herbs were far from ordinary, these were things that could truly create really godly pills. There was no lack of herbs in the Xuanwang world or ancient saint world. Initially, Lin Fan's perspective was limited, and he had thought that those were the limits of everything he had seen. But, ever since he arrived at the Endless Mainland, he discovered that the herbs here were way better than those back in the Xuanwang or ancient saint world. Between them, there wasn't even a room for comparison. The herbs right now costed at least 10,000 to 20,000 contribution points each. Within the Heaven and Earth sect, this could be considered as something pretty decent already. As for those that were even more expensive, it wasn't that Lin Fan did not want them, it was just that they just weren't worth it. The pills that he was cultivating out right now were for his own consumption, which he could then convert for experience points. At this moment, he was actually getting a little excited now. He did not know what sort of godly pills he could create with them. Pills through thought. Flames surged out with just a thought of his, and then Lin Fan tossed all of the herbs within it without any hesitation. The impurities were purged. The medicinal powers were concentrated. Pill formation. Instantly, Lin Fan's expression turned serious as he entered the Heaven and Earth smelt, followed by a bedazzling brilliant light bursting forth. One after another, a series of pills that shone with a golden divine light floated out before his eyes. If not for the fact that Lin Fan's speed was fast and he had entered the Heaven and Earth smelt, this bedazzling brilliant light would have definitely caused a huge stir within the entire sect. Ding! Pills cultivated successfully. Lin Fan grabbed the pills over. Unlimited Heavenly Firmament Pill. Grade. Middle Grade Perfect Immortal Pill. Effects. Improves one's cultivation speed by 20 times. Duration. 1 day. After consumption, it is able to be converted into 80 million experience points. Black Emperor's Water Pill. Grade. Middle Grade Perfect Immortal Pill. Effects. Completes the Black Emperor spirit body. After consumption, it is able to be converted into 70 million experience points. These pills were not things that were available within the Heaven and Earth sect. Based on the explanation of pills as described by the Heaven and Earth sect, the fact that the pills created by Lin Fan could have effects as such meant that they were not even of an immortal pill grade right now. This was a grade that even higher than that. It was so high that if he were to take them out, it would definitely cause an uproar. But of course, Lin Fan wouldn't be stupid enough to take them out to sell. Even if he were to sell them, no one would actually believe him at all. For Lin Fan, contribution points did not have any use at all. The only requirement he had right now was to raise his strength up as much as possible before going out of the sect to go ham everywhere. Lin Fan opened his mouth wide and stuffed all the pills within. Yum, nom, nom. Fragrant and aromatic. This was delicious. If any disciples who knew of the pills' effects were to watch them being consumed as such, they would definitely spit out a mouthful of old blood in shock. These were Mother Sea King godly pills. Ultra super duper godly pills. But, this fella here was just popping them like candy. If any of these pills were to be displayed outside, it would definitely cause a bloodbath over it. The pills that Lin Fan could create had already far surpassed the realm of the grades of pills available in the Endless Mainland. Ding. Experience points plus 80 million. Ding. Experience points plus 70 million. Ding. Ding. The system continued on for a total of 4 times. The herbs that were required for these pills were way too much. And, if he were to have to continue using contribution points to exchange for these herbs, they would still get pretty expensive. Ding. Congratulations on cultivation state leveling up. Cultivation state. Immemorial ancient state full cultivation state. At this moment, Lin Fan could feel an endless amount of power cruising through his entire body. The powers within his body rumbled out furiously, and were way stronger than before by countless of times. This was true power. At this moment, Lin Fan channeled the powers within his body and filled every single cell he had with them. Expand. Breathe. The mystic skills within his body sorted themselves out entirely with this as well. This time around, Lin Fan had only brought his own treasures with him into the Endless Mainland. The weapon spirits within them were cultivating out peacefully by themselves. Lin Fan was extremely poor right now, so how could he have the means to raise them as well? It was only after he turned wealthy that he could bring them to skyrocket along with him. 1 month later, Lin Fan finally rose up. Bam! Bam! There were suddenly sounds of explosions coming forth from within his body. This was a sign of how full and robust his powers were. Senior brother Lin. At this moment, a voice traveled in from outside the doors. What is junior brother Li here for again? Lin Fan thought in his heart. Without hesitation, he came out of the heaven and earth smelt. Outside, Li Qing looked at the broken peak before him with a mix of emotions in his heart. This time around, Elder Qing Yangxi could have been considered to have all in on this bet. In the opinion of Li Qing, Elder Qing Yangxi was just sulking with his behavior. But, going against the sect like this did not seem like it would be worthwhile. However, he respected the decision of Elder Qing Yangxi, and would not say anything unnecessary as well. Junior brother Li Qing, is there anything up? Huh. All of a sudden, Li Qing realized that the aura of senior brother Lin seemed to have changed. Compared to 1 month ago, it seemed to be sharper than anything else right now. This was because Lin Fan had just come out from his seclusion and had yet to retract his aura. Li Qing did not say anything more and just handed some pills over to Lin Fan instead. Senior brother Lin, the sect's grand competition starts in a week's time. Elder Qing Yangxi hopes that senior brother Lin would take part in it as well. The sect's grand competition. Lin Fan was stunned. He had not paid much attention to this matter. However, when he was peddling those pills a month earlier, he had overheard a disciple mentioning it. He wasn't too concerned with it back then. This sect's grand competition or whatnot was something Lin Fan wasn't too bothered about. Senior brother, this sect's grand competition allows you to challenge the remnants. If the remnants are to fall, you can become a new remnant. Li Qing said. Oh, Lin Fan did not have much of an interest in that. He was totally unconcerned about being the sect's remnants and whatnot. He wasn't really interested in the politics of the sect. All he wanted to do was get rich quietly. Looking at how senior brother Lin did not seem too interested over it, Li Qing was getting flustered. The strength of senior brother Lin was obvious. That guy that was born from the fires of the heaven and earth and whatnot, his strength was no way stronger than senior brother Lin's. And yet, he was able to become a remnant. This was just one hell of a Mother Sea King dog's tea. Senior brother Lin, Elder Qing Yangxi really hopes that you can participate in this grand competition. The strength of that guy born from the fires of the heaven and earth is nowhere comparable to yours, senior brother Lin. You can replace him, senior brother Lin. Li Qing added on. I've got it. Let's see how things go when it comes to it. What's this stuff? Lin Fan looked at the stuff in Li Qing's hands curiously. There wasn't anything good there though. Some of the pills there might be pretty decent for the disciples of the heaven and earth sect. But for Lin Fan, they did not mean anything at all. Compared to the pills that he cultivated out himself, there was practically a world of a difference. There was no comparison that could be made between them. These are pills that Elder Qing Yangxi had sent over in the hopes that you would take part in the grand competition. They are extremely helpful to one's cultivation. Li Qing replied. Lin Fan went silent for a moment before raising his head. Go back and tell Elder Qing Yangxi that I will give this matter about the grand competition a serious thought. Towards those remnants, Lin Fan was truly unbothered about them. That Ling Wuzun was a remnant, and was even someone famous on the true immortal substitute role. But even then, so what? He still fell in the blink of an eye. Then, your junior brother here will wish and congratulate senior brother in advance for a successful outcome. Li Qing was sincerely hoping that Lin Fan would take part in it. Lin Fan nodded his head. Without saying anything more, Li Qing left the Saint Devil Peak. Chapter 994 Climbing the Skies. Chapter 994, Climbing the Skies. As the grand competition approached, the Saint Devil Peak was getting livelier as well. Su Hongqian, Hu Qing, and the others had arrived at the peak. Lin Fan understood what their intents for coming over were. All of them wanted to stand on his side and follow this ship of his. Aren't you guys going to take part in the grand competition? Lin Fan asked. Su Hongqian chuckled out, for the sect's grand competition, we would naturally take part in it. However, we're only going to join the grand competition for the inner sect disciples, and hope to be able to get a good placing so that we can win some valuable rewards. Given junior brother Lin's strength, you can definitely challenge the remnants. That Ling Wuzun's strength is nowhere near yours, junior brother Lin. If you take him down, you will become a remnant, junior brother Lin. Hu Qing said. Su Hongqian and the others knew of their own strength's limits. It was decent enough for them to stay within the inner sect disciples, and there was a chance for them to get a good placing here. But, if they wanted to challenge the remnants, they wouldn't be qualified for that. Just that Ling Wuzun alone could already suppress them so badly with just his aura alone that they could not speak out at all, let alone even get on the arena to fight. Lin Fan chuckled out. Towards this grand competition, he did not have much of an interest. But, when he saw how the masses were encouraging him to challenge the remnants repeatedly, that built up a little interest in him. When it came to it, perhaps he could really give it a look. Who is the number one among all the remnants? Lin Fan asked. Dao Wenshan. When Su Hongqian spoke of this person, her face turned grim. This Dao Wenshan is the number one remnant of the entire heaven and earth sect, and ranked number 4 on the true immortal substitute role. His strength is extremely formidable, and not to be underestimated. Hu Qing said. Ranked number 4 on the true immortal substitute role. That means that he does not have the strength of a true immortal then. In the eyes of Lin Fan, anyone below a true immortal was just trash. That's right. However, rumors had it that Dao Wenshan had once challenged an elder of true immortal state within the sect. Not only that, he had managed to take down the elder within 10 moves. Even though his strength isn't that of a true immortal, he is a terrifying existence that can take down a true immortal. Su Hongqian said. So, if you wish to challenge the remnants, junior brother Lin, you must never, ever challenge Dao Wenshan, because that guy is simply way too terrifying. He is known as the strongest in the entire sect among anyone below a true immortal state. Lin Fan nodded his head. However, the news did not faze him at all. I'll make some considerations for the sect's grand competition this time around. Lin Fan said. Su Hongqian and the others nodded their heads before leaving the Saint Devil Peak. They hoped that junior brother Lin would be able to become a remnant. Because in their eyes, he definitely had the strength to do so. 1 week later, Lin Fan had been in seclusion in the Saint Devil Peak the entire time, and was working hard at fusing all of his mystic skills of the martial arts. The results were still pretty decent, and there was some improvement there indeed. Dong! Suddenly, the sound of a bell rang out through the entire world. This bell sound possessed a strain of the sect's might that floated out within the entire world, solid enough to even suppress demons. Lin Fan stood up and headed over to the area of the sect's grand competition. When he arrived at the scene and saw that it was almost quite literally a sea of disciples, he was slightly taken aback as well. Indeed, things were the liveliest within a sect. Senior brother Lin. At this moment, junior brother Li Qing waved out at Lin Fan from not too far away. Lin Fan headed over and greeted him. Qing Yangxi, who was standing at the side, checked out Lin Fan from up to down, slightly troubled. Why did the aura of this lad seem the exact same as before? It was just plain and normal. Elder, what are you looking at? Lin Fan chuckled out while asking. Nothing. Well, have you been slacking off? Qing Yangxi asked. What's with that? Lin Fan asked in bewilderment. How had he been slacking off? This aura of yours doesn't seem as though there's been much improvement. Qing Yangxi commented curiously. Lin Fan chuckled out again. Elder, if you were to judge someone based on this judgment of yours, you will definitely lose out. Qing Yangxi was stunned for a moment before it struck him. He then laughed out. I understand now. Right, so, are you going to take part in the sect's grand competition this time around? If you challenge the remnants, you can become a remnant yourself. I'll take a look and see first. There's no hurry. Lin Fan waved his hand dismissively. Towards this matter, he was totally unbothered. According to his plan in his mind, he wanted to head out into the world to check it out after this grand competition. The world outside was so huge. That would also mean that there would be more opportunities for him to raise his strength. After he raised his strength, he could then enter the secret ground and bring everyone out. That was Lin Fan's plan. Qing Yangxi was slightly disappointed. It would be a real pity if you do not take part in this grand competition. You are someone that I had brought back. If you can take down a remnant, that would bring some glory to this old face of mine. Ha ha ha, Lin Fan burst out laughing. He truly had not thought that Qing Yangxi would have thoughts as such. But in his opinion, this Qing Yangxi was honestly quite decent. He could be considered as a good man. But, it was a pity that the good would always die young. Boom, silence. At this moment, a figure appeared on an elevated platform as a mighty voice boomed throughout the entire sect. Seems like that mixed breed is the organizer this time around. When Qing Yangxi caught sight of who it was, he was caught in a huff. Clearly, it was that elder Huo who was born from the fire of the heaven and earth standing on that elevated platform. You have a grudge against him? Lin Fan grinned while asking. Yes, an extremely great grudge. Qing Yangxi nodded his head. The heaven and earth sect has flourished for hundreds of thousands of years now, and there are countless of astounding genius disciples that we have produced. The grand competition this time around is a proof of strength. It is divided into the outer sect grand competition and the inner sect grand competition. For the outer sect duels, the first place can obtain a middle grade Dao weapon, the demon suppressing berserk saber. The top 10 rewards for the outer sect disciples were extremely attractive. If they could get into top 10, they could be said to be soaring straight into the heavens. They might even become inner sect disciples. The top 10 rewards for the inner sect grand competition was announced next. The reward for the first place was a middle grade utmost treasure along with countless of pills. The rewards for the next few in line were extremely plentiful and extraordinary as well. Seemed like the inner sect disciples were extremely covetous of it as well. But in the eyes of Lin Fan, all of these treasures were just banal, nothing much really. Lin Fan's sights were fixated on somebody who was on that elevated platform. The Grand Master of the Heaven and Earth sect. His aura was extraordinary, with a profound strength to him. This was definitely not someone he could go up against. However, Lin Fan did not think that the other party was too high for him to reach. As long as he was given a bit of time, surpassing the other party even would be something extremely simple as well. Lin Fan then cast his sight in another direction. There were 10 people seated somewhere. And since Ling Wuzun was seated amongst them, those 10 must be the remnants then. Lin Fan only took a quick casual glance, and did not put it to heart at all. There were people who were assigned to take charge of the outer sect and inner sect disciples. But, the Grand Master and the many elders, who were here to watch the grand competition, were not here to observe those. Right now is when the grand competition gets exciting. Qing Yangxi said. Within the sect, challenging the remnants wasn't something that was included in the grand competition. However, during the grand competition, any disciple had the chance to challenge any remnants. In the Heaven and Earth sect, the one thing that overrode everything was the fact that strength reigned supreme. Reporting to the Grand Master, I would like to challenge Remnant Ling Wuzun. At this moment, a disciple yelled out loud as he stood up bravely. When this voice rang out, all the surrounding disciples started getting wilder. It had finally begun. When Ling Wuzun, who was seated on the seat of the remnants, heard these words, he let out a smirk of contempt. To think that there would truly be someone who would dare challenge him. But, when Lin Fan caught sight of who it was, he froze up slightly. Wasn't that fella the bloody big tycoon, Ma Tengyan? Lin Fan chuckled out. This was interesting now. With countless of his healing pills, this guy really wanted to climb the sky now. Chapter 995 Creating a Mess of Things. Chapter 995, Creating a Mess of Things. The crowd was bustling with excitement right now. Holy FCK, the guts of that Ma Tengyan are way too huge now. To think that he would dare to challenge at the remnants now. Who knows, perhaps that fella is just trying to draw some eyeballs to his antics. Senior brother Ling Wuzun is a powerful being who is ranked number 48 on the True Immortal Substitute roll. Out of his 10 great remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect, 9 occupy a spot on the True Immortal Substitute roll. What's your name? To think that you would have the guts to challenge me. Ling Wuzun descended from the void and stood upright on the competition arena. He looked down at Ma Tengyan with a face full of disdain. Ma Tengyan rolled his eyes. Wait till you're able to win against me in the challenge before you get the right to ask me my name. Otherwise, in my eyes, you are but another disciple who is about to lie flat on the ground. Tyrannical. The moment Ma Tengyan spoke those words, all the surrounding disciples were totally frozen in absolute shock. The many elders who were up on the platform were equally astounded as well. The Heaven and Earth sect was not the Heaven and Earth sect for nothing. The disciples here were one more tyrannical than the other. With disciples of this caliber, there were no worries that the sect would not flourish. Courting death, Ling Wuzun was totally enraged right now as he struck out instantly. Ma Tengyan's face was filled with a resolute expression. It was as though he had prepared his plan long before this duel. The strength of this Ma Tengyan was a lot weaker than Ling Wuzun's. If there were no accidents, he would definitely lose for sure. Bam! Ling Wuzun struck out with a palm towards Ma Tengyan's body furiously. However, this Ma Tengyan did not even bother to dodge as he stood there and struck out on Ling Wuzun's body heavily as well. This was just going head-on with brute force against brute force. In the blink of an eye, Ma Tengyan was sent flying to one side like a kite that was cut off from its string. His mouth was spewing out a stream of fresh blood as well. Ling Wuzun had not expected that the other party would actually come at him head-on. However, receiving a palm strike from the other party was not much of an issue either. And just as Ling Wuzun thought that this had already ended, he realized that Ma Tengyan had stood up as though he was completely fine. When Lin Fan caught sight of this scene before him, he could not help but chuckle out. Amazing, to think that this fellow would really go head-on against Ling Wuzun with brute force just by popping pills. And to Lin Fan's astonishment, this Ma Tengyan was actually starting to play with self-destruction. The method of his self-destruction was by using Dao weapons. For an immemorial ancient state powerful being, the self-destruction of a Dao weapon would not really deal much damage. But, when it was at point blank, the impact was no joke either. That blast could cause someone's death. Not only that, Ma Tengyan wasn't even self-destructing them one after another. He was just mass exploding 4-5 of them together. Bloody hell, this was just the way the rich played. And, the eventual outcome of this was that Ling Wuzun was left spraying out blood left and right by the resultant blasts. Even though the injuries on Ma Tengyan's body were severe, he recovered in the blink of an eye as he started popping those pills in broad daylight. Hee. Each time he popped a single pill, Ma Tengyan would scoff out coldly once. It was as though he was saying, "Your tycoon here is going to play you to death completely." Seeing this scene, everyone were totally frozen solid. This was way too unreal, way too tyrannical. This wasn't something that ordinary people could play with. Eventually, the outcome was obvious. Ma Tengyan stood victorious. As for Ling Wuzun, his entire face was just filled with bewilderment. He had not expected that he would lose. He also did not know how this fella could do it. It was as though those Dao weapons did not cost any money as they self-destructed one after another. And each time, the self-destruction happened so close to him that he could not even react to it. As the person in charge, when Elder Huo caught sight of everything before him, he did not know what to say for a moment or so. Inner sect disciple Ma Tengyan has succeeded in the challenge and is promoted to be a remnant. Previous remnant Ling Wuzun has lost the battle and shall become an inner sect disciple. When Elder Huo spoke out with these words, the entire crowd seemed as though it was about to explode. This. Reporting to the Grand Master, reporting to the Elder, I do not wish to be a remnant. This disciple here knows that my strength is not as strong as this person before me. However, what this disciple wanted to prove was that even if I'm weaker, I'm able to take down someone stronger than myself. Ma Tengyan stood on the arena saying before he turned around and left right away. And just as he was ready to hop down from the arena, Ma Tengyan turned around to look at Ling Wuzun. I told you, you're not qualified to know my name. Every single word that Ma Tengyan spoke of was just like a tight slap that was rained down onto Ling Wuzun's face. At this moment, Ling Wuzun was totally flabbergasted. He felt that he would definitely turn into a laughingstock from this day forth. That fella is really Mother Sea King good at putting on an act. But, he probably knows that even if he becomes a remnant, he will not be able to hold on to that position. Lin Fan thought in his heart. This first duel had brought the mood of the crowd to a peak. To think that an inner sect disciple would have stood victorious. This invigorated the hearts of many inner sect disciples. Even though the method of victory used by this fellow was pretty weird, it was truly tyrannical. When the Grand Master of the Heaven and Earth sect caught sight of this disciple, he could not help but nod his head as well. This lad had character. Even though there was a good start from the inner sect disciples, for a moment or so, there were no other inner sect disciple who had taken the initiative to come forth and challenge again. Their greatest goals were still to obtain the rewards for the top 10 disciples amongst the inner sect grand competition. At this moment, Elder Huo stood there and cast a glance over at Dao Wenshan. Dao Wenshan's expression was haughty as he stood up. Reporting to the Grand Master, even though the Heaven and Earth sect is one of the 9 righteous sects right now, this disciple feels that the quality of the disciples that are being brought in every year is of extremely low caliber. Therefore, this disciple wishes to challenge Elder Qing Yangxi so that I can take on the role of the elder in charge of reviewing the sect's disciples. At this moment, Dao Wenshan spoke up. Everyone had not expected that Dao Wenshan would actually challenge Qing Yangxi. Qing Yangxi, who was standing there, felt his face freeze up a little as though he was caught in disbelief. Lin Fan's brows furrowed. What was the meaning of this? Dao Wenshan, what do you mean by that? Qing Yangxi was enraged right now. Was this fella implying that the disciples he had chosen for the sect were all that could not make it? I mean nothing much, Elder Qing Yangxi. Your judgment is simply way too poor. Have you brought in any good seeds for the sect in the recent years? Dao Wenshan asked. The positions of the entry-level elders are to be occupied by those who are capable. As a remnant, I, Dao Wenshan, have the capability to challenge the elders. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Within the Heaven and Earth sect, disciples could challenge the entry-level elders. However, the prerequisite for that must be that their cultivation states must be a true immortal state. Even though this Dao Wenshan wasn't someone at true immortal state, everyone knew that he was someone who could enter the true immortal state anytime he wished. Li Qing, who was standing beside the elder, was glaring with Dao Wenshan with a look of fury. He did not expect that Dao Wenshan would actually speak up to challenge Qing Yangxi. I'll permit it, Elder Huo spoke up. Qing Yangxi was beyond furious right now as he headed for the arena straightaway. You, lad. Since when have I not brought in any good seeds for the sect? Who are you to say that? Whether or not that is the case does not matter anymore. Today, I, Dao Wenshan, am going to challenge you. Dao Wenshan replied calmly. At this moment, all of the disciples present were just completely startled. They had not expected that there would be so many major events happening during the grand competition this time around. Elder Huo gloated out in his heart. This was something that they had been waiting for over a long time now. Finally, the chance had arrived. However, some of the elders who were of true immortal state and above frowned. They felt that this Dao Wenshan was going overboard with this now. As an elder in charge of reviewing disciples, Qing Yangxi had selected quite a few decent disciples for the sect. To think that something as such would happen today. Even though there was this rule within the sect, there were few who would invoke this right to challenge outright. 3 moves. Within 3 moves, I'll be able to take you down. Dao Wenshan glared at Qing Yangxi coldly. Lad, don't get too cocky now. Qing Yangxi was enraged. Lin Fan, who was standing down below calmly, knitted his brows tightly. He knew that Qing Yangxi was no match for this Dao Wenshan. Let the duel begin, Elder Huo spoke up. The first move. Bam! A palm strike flew over and sent Qing Yangxi stumbling backward. The second move. An extremely profound power gushed out. Even though Qing Yangxi was someone with the strength of true immortal state, he was still no match for Dao Wenshan nevertheless. The third move. Bam! Elder! A figure was sent flying out of the arena. Qing Yangxi sprayed out a mouthful of fresh blood as his eyes were filled with an endless amount of wrath. On the sparring arena, Dao Wenshan swept his robes with an arrogant expression. If I say 3 moves, I mean 3 moves. There wouldn't be any more move. Li Qing rushed up front and hugged up Qing Yangxi. When he checked out the wounds, he raised his head. Dao Wenshan. Why do you have to be heavy with your attacks? Li Qing howled out in rage. He had realized that Elder Qing Yangxi's laws as a true immortal were broken apart. Fists and kicks have no eyes. The fact that I did not take his life is already mercy on my part. Qing Yangxi's judgment has been eroded, and he has not brought forth any disciples with potential for the sect over many years now. This has an impact on the sect's development and he could be said to have failed in his job. If there are no successors for the sect in the future, he will be the greatest sinner for that. Honestly, this is the greatest mercy I can accord him. Dao Wenshan replied coldly. Li Qing realized that the Grand Master was just sitting there without saying anything. In a moment of fluster, he shouted out, Grand Master. Elder Qing Yangxi has fought tirelessly for the sect, and has given it his entire heart and soul. Dao Wenshan is just spouting falsehoods and accusations there. Oh, the Grand Master spoke up. Qing Yangxi spat out a mouthful of old blood. He hadn't expected that the Grand Master would reply with just a single word. Grand Master, I, Qing Yangxi, have given the sect my everything and more. Qing Yangxi shouted out. Elder, don't speak anymore. At this moment, Lin Fan stood up and took out the damage-leaving pill so that Qing Yangxi could consume it. But right now, Qing Yangxi's emotions were evidently extremely worked up. He pulled on Lin Fan's sleeves. I, Qing Yangxi, have given the sect my everything and more. Li Qing looked at Dao Wenshan, who was standing on the arena looking all smug and cocky, and felt his entire body burning with a rage and indignance. Senior brother Lin, you must prove yourself. Li Qing tugged at Lin Fan with bloodshot eyes. Me. Lin Fan was stunned, not understanding what was going on. What had this got to do with him again? Senior brother Lin, you are a paragon that Elder Qing Yangxi has brought back into the sect. For that, Elder tried pushing for the seat of the remnant for you, but it was taken away by that spirit fire of the heaven and earth that Elder Huo has brought back. Elder was afraid that you might be displeased over the fact, and therefore, he made use of the contribution points that he was saving up for the immortal calamity to exchange for the mystic skills of the martial arts and pills that only remnants should rightfully possess. The moment Lin Fan heard this, he was taken aback. He truly hadn't expected that things would actually be as such. Lin Fan took in a deep breath before walking over to Qing Yangxi's side. Take this pill and consume it. I'll prove the rest of it for you. At this moment, Lin Fan walked up onto the arena slowly. Grand Master, this disciple here is Lin Fan. I am a disciple that Elder Qing Yangxi has brought back. Elder Qing Yangxi has been framed by this small boy. I'm indignant about that. I heard that the number one remnant in the entire sect is Dao Wenshan. That is something I'm indignant about as well. I wish to challenge him. The moment Lin Fan said this, every single person present was totally stunned. Qing Yangxi was even more astounded. To think that Lin Fan would wish to challenge Dao Wenshan himself. How could he possibly win? Permitted. The Grand Master spoke up. From the start to the end, it seemed as though the Grand Master could only speak in simple words. Some of the elders who were sitting beside the Grand Master felt that this was extremely strange. Given this situation and his character, he would definitely step in to prevent it. But, what in the world was going on right now? After looking over carefully, the elders were even more surprised. This was such an important occasion. And yet, this bloody Grand Master had actually sent forth an emotionless puppet doppelganger in his place. This was something that only knew simple replies such as, oh, permitted, okay, and, not bad. Could he not know that something major was happening here? Qing Yangxi must be feeling so disillusioned right now. At this moment, Lin Fan extended his palm and looked at Dao Wenshan calmly. One move. If you can remain standing after, we'll take that as my loss. Boom. Explosion. The entire crowd was totally dumbstruck by these tyrannical words. As for some of the elders, they were beyond astounded. This entire affair was just incredulous. But, one might as well forget it. Since things had escalated to such an extent, they were not going to carry the weight of the responsibility right now. They would just wait for the Grandmaster's return to settle this himself personally. Ha 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 ha. Dao Wenshan roared out in laughter. He was laughing so hard he was almost tearing up. His face then froze up before being replaced with a look of absolute contempt. Just someone like you. The other remnants who were seated there burst out in laughter as well. The look they had as they stared at Lin Fan was as though they were looking at a dumb fool right now. Su Hongchen and the others were just watching with their jaws hanging agape right now. Junior brother Lin was just out and bent on creating a mess of things. Chapter 996. Are you guys convinced? Chapter 996. Are you guys convinced? The grand competition of the Heaven and Earth sect was an extremely grand affair. There were countless disciples who were waiting for this moment for the longest time now. But now that everything had escalated to such a state, this wasn't something that everyone had wanted to happen. All of the outer sect and inner sect disciples came to a stop in whatever they were doing, all of them fixated on the happenings at the sparring arena up ahead. There were two figures up there. One of them was the number one remnant, Dao Wenshan, and the other was an inner sect disciple. All of the remnants who were seated on their elevated platform sniggered out while discussing. This fella is practically courting death. To think that he would dare to challenge senior brother Dao Wenshan. Who in the sect doesn't know that Dao Wenshan is the one with the most formidable strength amongst the remnants? Even some of the elders of true immortal state cannot dare to claim that they can defeat him. And yet, that lad is claiming that he can take down the other party in a single move. That is just completely laughable. Ling Wuzun could be considered to have lost all his face right now. Being suppressed by an inner sect disciple was a shame that he would never be able to wash off for his entire life. In fact, he had just turned into a complete joke. And right now, the fella that was standing on the stage was the most hated person of his entire life. Senior brother Dao Wenshan, you must definitely defeat and kill that fella. Ling Wuzun cheered in his heart. Even if the other party weren't killed, he must be whacked up like a dog at the very least. When Li Qing looked at the figures up on the stage, he was frozen for a moment as well. Elder, senior brother Lin. Li Qing did not know what to say. Even though he knew that senior brother Lin was strong, even stronger than most remnants, he still felt a little uneasy when this was Dao Wenshan he was facing up against. This Dao Wenshan was ranked number 4 on the True Immortal Substitute roll, and possessed an extraordinary strength. He was an existence not to be underestimated. Even Elder Qing Yangxi could not last 3 moves against him. How much of a chance did senior brother Lin have? Qing Yangxi gripped his fists tightly at this moment as his face was grim. It seemed as though there was a single breath that was stuck in his chest as his entire face was flushed red. In his eyes, there was only a single figure that stood there unmoving in the winds. HMPH. To think that the feeble light of a pearl would dare to snatch for glory from the shine of the moonlight. When Dao Wenshan caught sight of this inner sect disciple before him, his tone was cold and frosty and his expression was haughty. It was as though he had complete disregard for Lin Fan. Initially, Lin Fan did not want to fight for all this attention with others in the sect. His only goal was to raise his strength continuously and turn into a powerful being at the pinnacle. If he could enter a sect, it would be akin to him having a backing. But, given the current situation, he had no other way but to strike out. Lin Fan had not expected that Qing Yangxi would have given so much effort and emphasis on him. All the while, Qing Yangxi had viewed him as a supreme paragon, and someone who should be a remnant of the sect rightfully. Even though all Qing Yangxi managed to fight for was a spot amongst the inner sect disciple, he was afraid that Lin Fan might be unhappy over it, and had even used his own contribution points to exchange for items so that he could enjoy the treatment that remnants enjoyed. But right now, Qing Yangxi was being bullied. What else could Lin Fan do other than proving himself? Initially, he had wanted to strike it big and rich silently. But right now, he just had to let everyone else know of what he could do then. Lin Fan looked over at Dao Wenshan calmly and his lips curled into a smile. One move. Bam! In a flash, Lin Fan's figure had disappeared from where he was. All the surrounding disciples were suddenly shocked. They could not find his figure at all. The new movement skill created from fusing, reaching heavens in a single bound, and, so near, yet so far, was something that was unusually horrifying. Boom! At this moment, a tremendous pressure burst forth from the void above. Dao Wenshan raised his head and his face changed. To think that this fellow would have some capabilities to him. The Dao is infinite, and one shall return to their natural order. A single thread of might. Dao Wenshan hollered out as he chanted out the wisdom of the great Dao in his mouth. As he punched out with a single fist, a bright beam of light shone out with an unparalleled might. Passing through the past and present, the powers that were channeled surged up, causing the entire sparring arena to quake in the face of it. When some of the elders caught sight of this single fist of Dao Wenshan, they could not help but exclaim out. Seems like the reason why Dao Wenshan's cultivation state had been stuck at the immemorial ancient state full cultivation state was that he was just working on refining and perfecting the root of his cultivation. This single fist crosses all living beings, and the mystic skill has even entered the Dao state, such that it possesses the power of the heaven and earth. Once he deploys it, it can absorb and give out everything with an aura that seems as though an infinite number of horses are galloping out. I'm afraid that the inner sect disciple is going to have trouble defending against this. To think that a mere inner sect disciple would dare to try exchanging blows with me, Dao Wenshan. That is just seeking your own humiliation. I, Dao Wenshan, will not kill you. But, I will make you remember this for life. Dao Wenshan barked out. At this moment, Lin Fan's face was calm as the powers within his body rumbled out furiously. So what if your mystic skills are infused into the Dao? If I say I'm going to take you down with one move, I'm going to take you down with one move. Kneel down for me. Boom! A single palm strike that seemed as though it could split open the entire universe bolted down from the heavens with a torrential might. It seemed as though there was a heavenly might that was slamming down towards Dao Wenshan. How could this be? Dao Wenshan's face was drained of color. But all of a sudden, that single palm seemed like it had passed through time and space. By the time he reacted to it, that palm had already pressed down on top of his head. Creak, bam, the entire ground split apart. The surrounding disciples could only watch the scene before them with wide open jaws. They felt as though their entire hearts had come to a stop. How could this be? To think that Dao Wenshan would have lost. When the elders caught sight of everything before their very eyes, they bolted upright. All of their faces were aghast as though they had just seen a ghost. Dao Wenshan felt as though his knees were buckling under the weight of the pressure as he collapsed onto the ground with a thud. On his head, that extremely normal and plain-looking palm had him suppressed heavily. Lin Fan stood there with a look of contempt as he looked at this ant trapped under his palm. First among the remnants, but that's all he amounts to. Lin Fan's voice was indifferent. However, like the way a king would speak, the masses felt their hearts quiver under its influence. Li Qing was stupefied right now. His pupils were so wide open it seemed as though his entire eyeball was about to explode out. Su Hongchen and the others were in so much shock that their jaws were wide open. As for Elder Qing Yangxi, his tears streaked down the side of his eyes as he roared out in laughter. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. His laughter was endless as it infected the entire sparring arena's surroundings. That is a remnant, the number one among all remnants. And that is a disciple that I, Qing Yangxi, had brought back for the sect. To be able to crush this so-called number one remnant in a single move, that's the type of disciple that I, Qing Yangxi, have brought back for the sect with a great foresight. On the seating area of the remnants, all of those remnants were watching everything before them and felt as though their hearts had come to a stop. Each one of them stood up as their bodies shivered uncontrollably, and a surge of fear filled their hearts. Right now, Dao Wenshan was feeling an endless amount of shame within him as he roared out in rage. ****, the one who had suffered the greatest blow was none other than Dao Wenshan. To think that he would be taken down by the other party within a single move. And in such a humiliating manner to boot. No. Dao Wenshan howled out as the feeling of disbelief within his heart was getting ever stronger. It felt like it was a volcano that was about to erupt. I'll have you dead. At this moment, Dao Wenshan screamed out furiously and struggled. However, the palm that was still pressing down on his head was just like a gigantic mountain crushing on him. He could not resist or fight back at all. Arghhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh. Dao Wenshan bellowed out. His entire body's aura was just like a berserk typhoon right now that erupted out. He is trying to break through his cultivation state and enter the true immortal state. The elders exclaimed out in shock. Momentarily, the entire arena was filled with a tremendous surge of powers that were flowing out like a current. Within Dao Wenshan's body, it seemed as though a beast that was in slumber had just awakened. A maddened roar reverberated throughout the entire world. I'll have you dead. Lin Fan cast him a side glance and said with a calm tone, HMPH. Even if you enter the true immortal state, so what? Xing. The entire void trembled. A strain of law of the true immortals coiled itself around Dao Wenshan's body as the aura of the Dao of the immortals shook up all the audiences present. So strong. To think that after Dao Wenshan entered the true immortal state, he would be even stronger than most other true immortals. Right now, Dao Wenshan's eyes were bloodshot as his powers were rumbling out like massive tidal waves. At this moment, the masses were immersed in a state of shock. But at that very moment, there was something that shocked them even more. True immortal state, so what? Suppress. Bam. A reverberating explosion shocked the entire world. Lin Fan roared out with vigor as the powers in that palm of his surged up furiously once more before slapping down and crushing Dao Wenshan onto the ground harshly once and for all. First among the remnants, but that's all he amounts to. Lin Fan raised his foot before stomping down on Dao Wenshan. In that instant, every single member of the audience was just watching that figure with an absolutely horrified look. To think that even the Dao Wenshan who had broken into true immortal state could not have any strength to fight back at all. Just how strong was this disciple over here? How could he possibly be this strong? At this moment, Lin Fan stood on the sparring arena. He did not head down. Instead, he gave his robes a sweep before glaring at those seats of the remnants up above. He looked at those high and mighty remnants straight in the eye before saying out. I, Lin Fan, shall rank as the number one among the remnants. Out of the 9 of you, who is not convinced? Boom. Right now, the entire scene had blown up into a frenzy. Speak. Lin Fan's expression was sharp as he glared straight at the platform where the remnants stood in shock. At this moment, Lin Fan's presence was extremely tyrannical, and his tone was exceptionally overbearing. He did not even give any of those remnants any chance to regain any bit of dignity at all. He was just questioning those remnants in their faces right now. Were they convinced of his strength? Chapter 997 Don't beep beep. Just come. Chapter 997, Don't beep beep. Just come. At that moment, everyone from the Heaven and Earth sect was utterly dumbfounded. This crazy overpowered person's suppression of Dao Wenshan had already rattled everyone from the sect. But, to think that he would ask the remnants outright whether they were convinced of his strength. Since when had the world ever caught sight of such tyrannical behavior? Even if it was Dao Wenshan in the past, he had not been so tyrannical back then. When the 9 remnants who were standing there heard these words, their faces changed and surged with a look of cold fury. However, facing Lin Fan who had the overwhelming advantage in might, none of them dared to speak up at all. Are you convinced or not? Don't tell me that these so-called remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect do not even have the courage to speak up right now. Lin Fan repeated his question fiercely. Ling Wuzun wanted to cuss out and scold, however, he just continued to bear it. It wasn't that he didn't want to, it was that he didn't dare to. As for the remaining remnants, their hearts were burning with rage as well. No matter what they wanted to say, it all seemed as though there was something stuck in their throats, rendering them unable to speak up at all. When Elder Huo caught sight of this scene, his heart blazed with a raging flame. This was absolutely intolerable. This was especially the case for Dao Wenshan. To think that he would have been defeated and fainted over into just lying there like a dead dog right now. Some of the surrounding disciples wanted to head up. However, they did not dare to. As for the elders who were seated beside the Grand Master, their faces were filled with alarm as well. This is going to be crazy. To think that the Heaven and Earth sect would have a disciple of this caliber. One of the elders gasped out. Should we head in to stop this matter? If this were to carry on, something big might end up coming out of it. Another elder was worried. Why should we stop it? Is it an offense now if one wanted to create trouble based on their own capabilities? Even though we were not so arrogant back in the past, I don't think we were that far off either. A hot-tempered elder remarked. The Grand Master is probably going to regret not being here immensely this time around. Indeed, the Heaven and Earth sect is just blessed by the heavens for it to be able to produce a disciple of this caliber. By the time he grows up, he is definitely going to be a huge supporting pillar for our sect for sure. That God Essence sect has once produced a Qin Shungjin that stood above our sect in strength. But now that our sect has produced a disciple as such, there's no worry that we wouldn't be able to come back from that. Just wait and watch the situation play out. Anything is acceptable as long as it doesn't get lethal. Right now, all of those remnants are extremely filled with confidence. None of them think that there could be someone stronger than them and a world greater than theirs outside. Just let this lad create a good ruckus then. ... Enough is enough. You're honestly way too insolent, disciple there. This is the sect's grand competition, not a place where you can behave so wantonly with such unbridled atrocities. Elder Huo barked out. The fact that this fella had helped Qing Yangtze clear his name had already gotten Elder Huo in a fit of rage. And now, he still had the guts to challenge the other 9 remnants in that domineering manner. Amongst them, there was even a remnant who had an extremely important relationship with him. How could he allow this guy to be this brazen? Now that Elder Huo had spoken up, some of the surrounding disciples thought that this would bring the matter to a close. But, what they had not thought of was that this already tyrannical senior brother would actually bring his tyranny to a heavenly stage. Lin Fan's face scrunched up as he glared right at Elder Huo, HMPH. If you're unconvinced about anything, you can come on up. Insolent, Elder Huo roared out. He had not expected that this disciple would dare to taunt him. Mere talk is unproductive. Don't just relish in that pleasure of lashing out. If you're unconvinced, come on up. Otherwise, you can just shut up. Lin Fan replied. When Li Qing caught sight of everything before him, he could not help but gulp down his saliva. Elder Qing Yangtze, see, can we really allow this? Li Qing was already completely flabbergasted right now. He had always thought that senior brother Lin was someone who was low profile and humble. But, looking at the situation right now, he was just completely tyrannical. If anyone was unconvinced of his strength, he would just FCK them up. There was no one else like him. Su Hongqian, Hu Qing, and Ru Wanshu were just exchanging glances with one another while their hearts were thumping furiously in fear. This was way too frightening. This was not the junior brother Lin that they had known. No, they should be calling him senior brother Lin right now. The number one amongst all remnants. Qing Yangtze was unusually exhilarated initially. But, even he was shocked silly right now. He knew that Lin Fan was strong. This was a disciple who possessed a lot of potential. But, he couldn't have imagined that he was strong to this extent. This could only be described as sick. Elder Huo was thoroughly incensed right now. If even a mere disciple could dare to act so audaciously towards him, how else was he going to maintain his authority and command over the masses in the future? With a single shift of his body, he appeared on the sparring arena amidst a flash of red light. His head of red hair flared up with the winds as a berserk aura surged over. All the disciples watching knew that Elder Huo's blood was truly boiling right now. Facing that vengeful expression of his, Lin Fan was extremely composed. Why now? You wish to kill me? Taunting an elder on the sparring arena is a serious offense. Even if your elder here crushes you into ashes today, no one is going to blame me. Elder Huo's killing intent towards Lin Fan has been triggered completely. The strength of this lad had gone far beyond his expectations. For him to be able to take down Dao Wenshan, keeping him alive might prove to be a real danger in the future. If he could, he would really love to be able to kill this lad to death. Ha ha ha, taunting an elder. Then why was Dao Wenshan allowed to taunt Qing Yangzi? Lin Fan challenged in disdain. Dao Wenshan is a remnant whose strength goes beyond that of a true immortal state being. Elder Huo barked out in response. Oh, so, now that Dao Wenshan has fallen in my hands, that means that I am a remnant of the sect now. With that, I'll challenge you and crush you on this sparring arena then. Lin Fan said with an overbearing aura. Elder Huo's strength was quite a bit stronger than that of Qing Yangzi. This was especially the case for that core body of his which was formed from the fires of the heaven and earth. That gift of fire he had was extremely formidable, lauded as the eternally undying god flames. Be it in terms of cultivating pills or crafting weapons, he was more proficient than most people, which was all thanks to that gifted god flames he had. This duel between Elder Huo and Lin Fan right now had all the disciples awaiting with bated breaths. They felt that this duel was going to be a duel right at the pinnacle of all battles. Do you think that you can act all unlawfully just because you're able to defeat Dao Wenshan? I'll have you know that between the heaven and earth sect, there are many other existences you need to be wary of. Pishu. A streak of red light bolted up into the sky. Both of Elder Huo's hands shook suddenly as those initially old hands of his suddenly turned fiery red. That scorching temperature was so high that even the void was getting distorted due to the incinerating heat. This was the method of Elder Huo. Burning palm. Anyone who made contact with it would be burnt by these scalding flames. Even if they were to use their powers to shield their body, it would all be useless. That was because these flames would be able to burn even the powers into ashes. True immortal state middle level. Immemorial ancient state full cultivation state. The difference between these two was huge. Immensely, tremendously huge. Even if it were a supreme paragon, they would not dare to claim that they could take on an opponent a few cultivation states above them. Arg! At this moment, Elder Huo roared out as a torrential fiery aura burst out of him and the laws of true immortals churned out. His powers were erupting forth endlessly. Since you used one move to suppress Dao Wenshan, your elder here is going to let you understand how you are going to be taken down by your elder in a single move as well. Elder Huo snarled out in a cold tone before moving his body. Right now, he was like a human-sized sun that shone brightly across the entire crowd, blinding everyone with its brilliance. Lin Fan focused his attention right now and retaliated with a single palm strike. Even though the speed of that palm strike was fast, to Elder Huo, it wasn't really anything much. Lin Fan's palm strike struck air and landed on nothing. Slow, simply way too slow. Given your strength, you will not even get to touch the hems of your elder's sleeves. Elder Huo seemed as though he had disappeared. If not for the scorching heat of the surroundings, one would have thought that there was no one here at all. Is that so? Lin Fan laughed out coldly. Standing there, he did not budge a single inch as though he was rooted by Elder Huo's might. But just at this moment, his lips curled into a cold smirk. Found you. In the blink of an eye, Lin Fan did not even have to check out where he was hitting out. All he did was slam out with a furious fist towards the void that trembled out in the face of it. Lam_Lam_Wiu. Good fight. Not too bad. This is the Lin Fan we know and love that smacks at everyone's faces dauntlessly. Also, beep beep. ROFL. This is some joke slang. When you ask someone to not beep beep, it's kinda like asking them to not talk nonsense or say anything unnecessary. Beep as in the sound of censorship when people cusses. Beep beep beep. Ha ha ha. Cheers. Chapter 998 Suppress. Suppress. Chapter 998. Suppress. Suppress. Elder Huo's face changed. He had not expected that this lad would be able to sniff him out. This fist of Lin Fan possessed the doomsday calamity and the source of power. The moment it was deployed, it triggered an extremely mysterious power trying to search for a path within the unknowns. When the disciples outside caught sight of the scene, they could only gasp out in endless exclamations. They had not expected that this disciple would be so formidable that he could duel with Elder Huo to such an extent. This was just absolutely inconceivable. When Elder Huo's figure appeared out of the void, His fingers were like a claw that grabbed out towards Lin Fan's head. Bam! The two opposing forces burst out and caused a river to form up in the void. This caused the void to be compressed to a state where it was even deformed. This was because the opposing forces were way too tremendous, that one could not even defend against them. Everything would vanish like smoke and disappear from the face of this world in the face of this collision. Lad, is this the strength that you are so proud of? A voice of contempt trawled out as Elder Huo grabbed Lin Fan's fist with his vice-like claw grip. Those cold eyes of his seemed as though they were watching a pathetic worm. Lin Fan's brows furrowed. This Elder Huo did have some tricks up his sleeves. But, if this Elder Huo thought that this was enough to take him down, he would really be overestimating his own abilities. Extremely arrogant and smug, time to teach you a lesson today. Elder Huo snorted out coldly as his body shuddered, causing a burst of raging flames to soar up. Lin Fan could feel the temperature of that grip Elder Huo had on him rising. It then burst forth into flames that blazed more and more furiously with time before turning into a ball of scorching fire. Not good. When Qing Yangxi caught sight of this, the color of his face turned pale. This is the heaven and earth spirit fire of that fire-mixed breed. This can incinerate everything. If that lad does not break free in time, something big is going to happen. Qing Yangxi remarked. Li Qing looked at senior brother Lin nervously as well. He did not know how this matter was going to turn out. The might of Elder Huo's flames was something that he had once witnessed himself. There was one time when Elder Huo had burned a powerful being into ashes entirely in a secret ground with just this gifted god flames of his alone. That guy disappeared from the face of the world ever since. Lad, if you do not wish to die, sever your own arm right now. Elder Huo's eyes shone with a savage look. When the remnants caught sight of this, they were in ecstasy. This feeling was pure pleasure. This was the kind of outcome they wanted to see. This cocky and smug fella definitely had to be taught a lesson. In fact, in their eyes, it would be for the best if that fella were to be burned into ashes. None of the elders on the elevated platform made any movement at all. They were all waiting. If things were to really head south, they would then intervene to stop the duel. They would definitely not allow a disciple as such to die in the hands of Elder Huo. Even if Lin Fan had a single arm of his burned off, it was no biggie. He could always just regrow it. These heaven and earth god flames are far from ordinary. I'm not sure how that lad is going to defend against this. An elder said. Huh, another elder exclaimed out, feeling that there was something off about this situation. Feeling the burn of this heaven and earth spirit fire, Lin Fan did not wail or anything. In fact, his lips had curled into a smirk. Ding, eternal ancient imperishable body experience points plus 200,000. The raging flames that were burning on Lin Fan's arm brought for him a relentless amount of experience points. This was something that had him exhilarated. But at this moment, Lin Fan did not want to depend on Elder Huo to level up. Against an old mixed breed as such, he had to finish it swiftly and quickly. He had to take this guy down in an instant so that he would not dare to act so insolently ever again. Competing with me in terms of fire? We'll see if you've got the capabilities then. Lin Fan scoffed out coldly before the fiery flames of Pills Through Thought surged out. This flame was something that was gifted by the system to be used to cultivate pills. Even though it wasn't meant to be used against opponents, this old mixed breed was the one who was gripping onto his fist tightly right now. Even though Lin Fan could not attack him directly with it, he could still burn this guy into crying. A tiny flame appeared on top of Lin Fan's fist. Even though it seemed to be extremely ordinary, at this moment, Elder Huo's face changed entirely. Elder Huo was someone who manifested from the heaven and earth spirit fire. His sensitivity towards fire was something that was way sharper than anyone else could ever have. At the moment when he felt the flames burning from Lin Fan, his heart surged with an infinite amount of fear. What are those flames? How could this be? Elder Huo screamed out as though he had just seen a ghost. Even though the flames were small, they had caused the powers and astral chi within his body to start burning up. There was no room for resistance at all. These were flames that were used for cultivating pills. Any form of materials, even if it were god metals, could be refined and burnt with it, let alone the mere arm of a true immortal state being. If you do not wish to be burnt into ashes, sever your own arm then. Lin Fan's voice was frosty as he returned the same requirements to Elder Huo. You! Elder Huo glared at Lin Fan in rage. Momentarily, those long, red hair of his that were burning like the scorching sun rose up into the air as his face got more menacing than ever. You're looking to die here. Tao of the spirit fire, incinerate the firmaments. At this moment, Elder Huo roared out as he spat out a mouthful of essence blood. His essence blood shone with a golden brilliance and possessed the power of the spirit fire. Thereafter, it pitter-pattered down onto his arm just like raindrops. To think that this lad would be this powerful, that old mixed breed would even sacrifice his essence blood to make use of the Tao of the spirit fire. When Qing Yangzi caught sight of this, he was entirely astounded. This drop of essence blood from Elder Huo was not something from his essence energy, but something that directly originated from his true body where the essence of the heaven and earth spirit fire belonged. If he were to lose a single drop, that would cause Elder Huo to turn much weaker. But now that he was losing an entire mouthful of it, this was practically going at it with his life. Sizzle, sizzle, when the essence blood sprayed down onto Elder Huo's arm, it flushed even redder than ever. At the same time, there were circles of crimson-red imprints that appeared on his arm like conate runes. However, even if that were the case, it could not prevent the arm from being eaten up by the flames of Lin Fan. Arg hhhhhhhhhh. A tragic wail rang out across the world. Elder Huo's eyes were bloodshot red as he looked at everything with utmost horror. In the blink of an eye, he jerked and destroyed that arm of his. The flames surged and flared. In that single fraction of a second, that severed arm was incinerated into ashes entirely. Damn it, you've really triggered your elder's killing intent. Elder Huo howled out in rage. To think that the lad would really be thinking about killing him. If he had hesitated for even a split second more, it wouldn't have been just that single arm that was turned into ashes. He would have turned into ashes entirely as well. He was the heaven and earth spirit fire. How in the world could there be a flame that was more tyrannical than him? This was impossible. Lin Fan's eyes shone with a wild look. Seizing the single moment of opportunity when Elder Huo was still caught in his stupor, Lin Fan moved his body and appeared in front of the latter in a flash. Slapping out with a single palm strike, he suppressed down. Bam! A berserk power surged out and slapped Elder Huo to the ground immediately as his body sank deep into the ground. HMPH. Elder Huo, and that's all he amounts to. Lin Fan stomped down on him with his foot before surveying the crowd and declaring with a tyrannical disposition. At this moment, the entire place fell dead silent. Everyone was just completely frozen solid by what they had just witnessed. Elder Huo had lost, and it was such a clean loss that he didn't even have a chance to fight back. Even after expending his essence blood, he could not turn the tides around. This was something that left not only the disciples astounded, but the elders were equally alarmed. Just what sort of a background did this disciple come from? How in the world could he be this formidable? At this moment, Lin Fan looked over at those remnants. Are you guys convinced? Chapter 999 What's up with this situation? Chapter 999 What's up with this situation? Those high and mighty remnants had long been scared silly by Lin Fan. Elder Huo was being trampled under the feet of this guy right now. This was something that had never ever happened since the founding of the Heaven and Earth sect. Even though there had been instances of disciples taking down elders, it was just a mere defeat. It was just like Dao Wenshan defeated Qing Yangzi, he had merely knocked the latter out of the arena instead of stomping him down with his foot. But, something such as the situation right now whereby the disciple refused to leave the elder with even a single shred of dignity and suppressed him entirely. This was a first for the sect. At this moment, all of the remnants were cussing out at Lin Fan in their hearts. How could this person be this tyrannical? Not only did he want to take the limelight for everything, he was still trying to find trouble with them. Even that hard boulder had been smashed, so what was he trying to do by squeezing out weak persimmons such as themselves? N-O-V-E in .c ohm. One mustn't be beastly to his extent. If Elder Huo hadn't been defeated by the other party, they might still have had some backbone left in them. But, given the current situation, how could they still stand tall and firm? However, if they were to bow down and cower, that wouldn't seem right either. Right now, all the disciples of the sect were present here. If the 9 of these great remnants were to bow down and surrender, they would definitely end up as the laughingstock of the other disciples of the sect from now on. The second remnant following Dao Wenshan was called Jian Kangchong. He was the number 2 remnant in the sect, and was ranked number 20 on the True Immortal Substitute roll. All the gazes of the other remnants landed on Jian Kangchong, as though they were waiting for him to start bowing down. He in turn glared back at the other remnants and started scolding their mothers in his heart. What were this bunch of Mother Sea King dogs *TS looking at him for? He was the only remnant amongst the sect who had an almost equal standing as Dao Wenshan. Normally, he was haughty beyond anything else as well. If this were any other normal disciple who had dared to ask him about being convinced like Lin Fan did, he would have long killed the other party with his longsword. But right now, he didn't dare to even move an inch. This was a disciple who had even taken down Elder Huo. If he dared to still act brazenly before the other party, wasn't he just simply courting death? Why are you guys not speaking now? Could it be that all of you guys aren't convinced? Lin Fan's eyes shone with a glint. Initially, he had not wanted to waste any more of his breath on these remnants after taking down Elder Huo. But on second thought, all of these remnants acted so high and mighty, thinking that they were unrivaled in this entire world. He had to give them a good walloping so that they would know just how powerful he was. That would save him from future trouble if they knew to behave themselves properly from now on. Alright, since that's the case, I'll come and challenge you guys one by one then. The first one will be Ling Wuzun. Lin Fan spoke up. When Ling Wuzun, who had been trying to hide inconspicuously, heard these words, his face changed entirely. His next course of action took no hesitation on his part. I'm convinced. Ling Wuzun spoke up immediately. Senior brother Lin has taken down the number 1 remnant, Dao Wenshan. I, Ling Wuzun, am convinced. Ling Wuzun had purposely placed emphasis on the words, number 1. It was as though he was telling the other disciples out there that it wasn't that he was a coward, but that he had no choice other than submitting down in defeat if even the number 1 had fallen. At this moment, Lin Fan turned his gaze towards the other remnants. I'm convinced as well. ... At this point, all the remnants started lowering down their heads one after another. They were truly convinced. The tyranny of this fellow was something that was totally beyond their expectations. Disregarding the fact that he had defeated Dao Wenshan, he had even defeated Elder Huo. Those methods were just earth-shattering, something that gods and ghosts would cry over if they witnessed them. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Lin Fan roared out in laughter. Soon after, it seemed as though he had suddenly recalled something. Oh, right, Elder Huo is still being trampled down beneath my feet. All of a sudden, Lin Fan snapped to his senses. He then helped up Elder Huo with his arm. Right now, Elder Huo no longer had any bit of authority to him. He was withered like a dried-up corpse. This was the result of expending too much of his essence blood. If there were no universal elixir or something that could help him recuperate from this loss, he could be considered to be a cripple for the rest of his life from this point forth. Lin Fan flicked his wrist and threw Elder Huo off the arena. Sweeping his robes with his hands behind his back, Lin Fan walked down the arena and came beside Qing Yangxi. How was that? Lin Fan asked. Right now, Qing Yangxi had recovered from his wounds. When he looked at Lin Fan, his face was flushed red with his blood cruising through his body thoroughly. He was emotional right now, extremely emotional. It seemed as though all the indignance in his heart had been poured out at this very instant. He felt that everything he had done so far was all worth it. Great, extremely great, Qing Yangxi replied emotionally. For the life of him, Qing Yangxi would have never imagined that a scene as such would ever happen before his eyes. To think that a disciple he had selected outside would be this formidable. Not only had he taken down those remnants, he had even taken down that fire-mixed breed. An achievement as such was truly and inconceivably rare. At this moment, be it inner sect or outer sect disciples, everyone knew that there was this number 1 tyrannical disciple in the heaven and earth sect. As for the remaining inner sect and outer sect grand competitions that took place afterward, all of them just seemed completely insignificant in the face of such an amazing spectacle. These 2 matches of Lin Fan could only be described as exciting. This was the epitome of excitement. The disciples who had witnessed the 2 matches could only feel that the grand competition this year was way too tyrannical. When he looked at the look of ecstasy on Qing Yangxi's face, Lin Fan did not even know what to say anymore. Pishu. Right at this moment, a long streak of light suddenly appeared within the void, and an extremely authoritative voice boomed over. Huh, what has just happened? When Lin Fan heard this voice, his face turned serious as he turned his head over to look. All he saw was a brilliant glare that burst forth from the void. There was a figure that looked like a heavenly being standing upright between the heaven and earth. When he looked down at the situation below, he revealed a look of surprise as well. It was as though he could not understand what had just transpired. Grand Master. Everyone was stunned. But, if the one standing in the void was the Grand Master, who was the person seated there then? Suddenly, some of the disciples realized what was going on. The Grand Master on that elevated platform is a puppet substitute of the real Grand Master. The Grand Master has been roaming around the world with his consciousness again. When Qing Yangxi caught sight of this, his heart was confused for a moment before he too realized what had happened. From the start of the grand competition until now, the Grand Master that he had witnessed was not the real Grand Master. The Grand Master that had appeared now was the true and real Grand Master. Han Juntian was the Grand Master of the Heaven and Earth sect. He was someone who loved roaming the world with his consciousness. Each time he did so, he would arrange for a puppet substitute to stay guard over the sect. This time around, when he was roaming outside, he had suddenly recalled that the grand competition was about to start. Because of that, he rushed back. But upon his return, he realized that something was up with the tension of the atmosphere. At the same time, he caught sight of two people lying on the ground. Dao Wenshan and Elder Huo. Han Juntian came to the seat of the Grand Master and kept his puppet substitute. The surrounding elders looked at their Grand Master as though they were telling him to settle this issue himself. Everyone, what has just happened here? Why are Dao Wenshan and Elder Huo in this state? Han Juntian asked in bewilderment. With that, one of the elders beside him spoke up and spilled the beans about everything that had happened earlier on. When Han Juntian heard the story, his face was filled with a look of shock. At the same time, his heart broke down. To think that everything would have been caused by this puppet substitute of his. Instantly, Han Juntian blamed the many elders nearby for not stepping in to prevent something like this from happening. As for those elders, they naturally looked for excuses for themselves. Who in the world would know that this was a puppet substitute of the Grand Master? Since the Grand Master himself had said that there was no problem, what else could they say? After hearing the explanations of the many elders, Han Juntian's face was stunned as well. This was too damned messed up. Then, he looked at the extremely wretched-looking Dao Wenshan and Elder Huo and shook his head. As he flicked out his finger twice, a mysterious aura healed up the wounds of those two men immediately. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, his heart was startled as well. Such formidable methods. After Dao Wenshan and Elder Huo recovered, their hearts burned with rage immediately as they sought to fight it out with Lin Fan again. You bloody F***er. This old man is going to fight you to death. ... That's enough. At this moment, Han Juntian spoke up. That single command of his was something that no one would dare to resist. Elder Huo looked over at the Grand Master, and then at Lin Fan vengefully. The burning rage in his heart was not extinguished, it was only concentrated and suppressed deeper and further. He would not live happily until he could smite this brat to death. Chapter 1000. This is a technical profession. Chapter 1000. This is a technical profession. Eventually, both Lin Fan and Qing Yangxi were summoned to meet with Han Juntian individually. No one knew what transpired between them. Initially, everyone had thought that Lin Fan was going to be reprimanded. But, it didn't take long before Lin Fan came forth with a gleeful look on his face. By the looks of it, it did not seem as though he had any issues, and seemed all fine and dandy. Lin Fan swaggered his way out of the Grandmaster's main hall and walked right over to the elevated platform of the remnants. His title as the #1 remnant was already solidified as he headed straight over for that seat. This had all the other remnants frightfully pale, and they could feel their hearts skipping. All of them knew that this was a savage man before them, a man so savage that there wasn't a single shred of humanity left within him. If he said he was going to suppress someone, he was going to suppress them without even a single bit of hesitation. Why now, are all of you guys extremely afraid of me? Lin Fan's face was calm. However, his heart was elated like blossoming flowers. The meeting with the Grand Master earlier on had reaped him a *T ton of benefits. At the same time, Qing Yangxi could be considered as the luckiest man right now. The fact that someone he had brought back had gotten the proper recognition was something that had him more elated than anything else. No, the 9 great remnants shook their heads immediately. However, there was no way they could hide that look on their faces that showed just how fearful they were towards Lin Fan. Since you guys do not fear me, take a seat then. Lin Fan said. The 9 great remnants exchanged glances with one another. For a moment or so, they did not know if they should truly sit down. Sit. At this moment, Lin Fan's tone turned slightly harsher. The moment the 9 great remnants heard this, all of them sat down obediently. After they sat down, the 9 great remnants were wary and reserved, no longer bearing any haughty expression as they had before. The grand competition went on as per normal. From an inner sect disciple, Lin Fan had skyrocketed to be the #1 amongst the remnants. As for Dao Wenshan and Elder Huo below the stage, they were infuriated beyond anything else. However, they did not have the face to continue staying here after the huge wave of embarrassment they had just gone through. Therefore, they left the place directly. Sitting there, Lin Fan finally understood what the feeling of being in a position of power and status was. It was no wonder why these remnants would look down at the disciples below with such a cocky attitude. This was really quite pleasurable. The inner sect and outer sect grand competitions soon came to an end. Lin Fan then returned to his Saint Devil Peak. The grand competition this time around had allowed him to show off to the max. Suppressing everyone present, he was now the famous #1 remnant in the entire sect. The news had spread like wildfire among the disciples of the sect. All of the disciples knew that Dao Wenshan had been taken down by an inner sect disciple, and the seat of the #1 remnant was overthrown. As for the news of Elder Huo being defeated by Lin Fan, his old face was practically lost right now within the entire sect. Even though the disciples were still pretty courteous to him no matter where he went, the strange look in their eyes was something that he could not deal with at all. Ever since Lin Fan became the #1 remnant, there had been many elders and inner sect disciples who had invited him over for meals and visits. Because of that, Lin Fan got to know quite a number of new elders and inner sect disciples. Towards such socialization, Lin Fan was extremely tactful as he conversed and got to know all of those elders and disciples. Even though the conversation did not get extremely deep, it was not a bad thing to get to know more elders and disciples within the sect. However, to Lin Fan's surprise, he found out that some of the inner sect disciples were in no way weaker than those remnants. In fact, some of them even had graded utmost treasures that they could use to suppress the remnants. 1 month later, Lin Fan woke up from his cultivation, arranging and sorting the mystic skills of his martial arts thoroughly. Leaving the Saint Devil Peak, he started heading out into the world to take a look. Within the void beyond the firmaments, a single look over was enough for Lin Fan to know of just how vast the endless mainland was. The laws of the heaven and earth here were even more refined than back in the ancient saint world. At the same time, the cultivation system was even more formidable than back there as well. Within the ancient saint world, due to the issue with the laws of the heaven and earth, the pinnacle state one could reach would always be immemorial ancient state. However, in this endless mainland, immemorial ancient state was only a middle state. There were even more cultivation states beyond this, the true immortal state being just one of them. And just as Lin Fan was flying around the void freely as he willed, a gigantic net appeared all of a sudden before wrapping him up within it entirely. Holy FCK, who in the world is trying to launch a sneak attack on me? Lin Fan was taken aback as he cussed out in his heart. Caught him. At this moment, a voice traveled over to Lin Fan's ears. Focusing his sight, Lin Fan caught sight of 2 fellas at a mountain peak down below. The both of them had an exhilarated expression on their faces as they grabbed out and dragged the net toward them. Big brother, this fella is someone from the heaven and earth sect. By the looks of it, he seems like he's a remnant. An extremely scrawny looking fella said. His face was extremely long and bony like that of a donkey, sizing Lin Fan up and down. Click, click, click. Very good. To think that we would have caught in a huge fish this time around. The man who was referred to as the boss was chomping down on melon seeds in his mouth. The clicking sounds of melon seeds being crushed came out as he looked at Lin Fan with a pleased expression. A remnant of the heaven and earth sect. They're all extremely rich. Didn't we catch a remnant in the past as well? The boss, Chu Zanyu, asked. That's right, we did catch one before. His name was Ling Wuzun or whatnot. Even though his strength was pretty formidable, in the hands of this heaven and earth net of ours, all of his strength was useless. The little brother named Jin Zhenggu said imposingly. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were from the same village in the past, and were fishermen. They once caught a mysterious box which was jade green in color. There were 2 pills within, 2 mystic skills of the martial arts, and an extremely mysterious net. Being gluttons, the both of them did not even think twice before popping those 2 pills. After they popped the pills, they picked up the martial arts mystic skills. Even though they did not understand the words that were written on it, they tried to cultivate following the pictures in it. And somehow, they managed to cultivate out a name for themselves through it. Later on, through sheer coincidence, they even managed to uncover the mysteries and cultivate out the full potential of the net. The name of the net was none other than the Heaven and Earth Net. From then on, both of them started on their journey in this world. One person at a time, a net at a time. Whoever was apprehended by the net would have no way of escaping at all. At this moment, Lin Fan was trapped within the net. When he touched out at the webbings, the system rang forth with a notification. Supreme Grade Immortal Weapon, Heaven and Earth Net. Holy sh*t. Good stuff. Seemed like these 2 strange-looking fellas were domineering enough. To think that they would be in possession of a supreme grade immortal weapon. Chu Zanyu took out an extremely long luffa and chewed on it in his mouth. He then spoke up and said, Lad, the both of us brothers will not harm your life. As long as you hand over everything that you have in your possession, we will definitely let you off. Boss, look at the sniveling look on the face of this fella. A single look and you can tell that he's a crafty one. How about we just search his body and strip him clean? Jin Zhenggu suggested. That is a pretty wonderful suggestion. Thankfully, you're the one with the smarter brain amongst the two of us. Otherwise, we might just be scammed by these disciples of these sects out there. Chomping down on his luffa, Chu Zanyu praised out. Jin Zhenggu chuckled out embarrassedly, "Boss, thank you for your praise. With me, Jin Zhenggu around, no one in this world shall dream of deceiving us." Even though this was a supreme-grade immortal weapon, if Lin Fan wanted to truly get out of this place, all he had to do was burn a hole through with his flames from pills through thought. However, Lin Fan could tell that these two fellas here seemed to be intellectually challenged. Now that he was foreign and new to this endless mainland, it would be pretty decent if he could find some lackeys for himself. Those that were too smart would not put him at ease. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. He felt most at ease when it was dealing with intellectually challenged retards like these two before him. The both of you, how about we talk things out properly? Aren't you guys just here to rob, that's all? Now, that is quite a technical profession as well. Therefore, I naturally can't let you guys leave this place without getting nothing in return for your hard work. Here, you can have these pills. Lin Fan said. Boss, this fella seems like an understanding guy who knows how tough our job is. Back in the past, those guys that we had caught were always trying to chop us to death. I think this fella is extremely cooperative. Jin Zhenggu exclaimed out. Chu Zanyu nodded his head in agreement, yes, that makes sense. Since this guy is so understanding, our attitude to him has to be better as well. Alright, boss. Jin Zhenggu nodded his head as well. Lin Fan looked at the both of them. For a moment or so, he was truly speechless.